Chapter 2261 2261 Breakthroughs. 2261 Breakthroughs. Now that the 10,000-year meet was over, there was naturally no way Xiaoling would stand guard here. Therefore he left. Su Zimo and the others passed through the water barrier in front of the cave and entered the Parasol Tree secret ground as well. At the same time, in the capital of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom, an ordinary carriage drove in slowly. "Your Highness, aren't you going to inform the other princes now that you've returned to the palace?" The driver of the carriage looked to be old and his beard was grayish-white. Although the driver did not send a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness, his voice seemed to have converged into a line that entered the carriage without spreading out at all. The surrounding crowd did not hear anything either. In the carriage sat a young man with a graceful bearing and a dignified aura. However, he did not move at all and exuded the might of someone who had been in power for a long time. However, the young man's lips were extremely thin and coupled with his aquiline nose, his features looked sinister and cold. "There's no need." The young man replied indifferently, "It's just a small matter of returning to the palace. There's no need to alarm others." Without saying anything more, the driver rode on the ordinary-looking carriage and gradually disappeared into the crowd. The moment Su Zimo and the others entered the secret ground, they felt a heatwave surge towards them. It was unbearable and suffocating. It felt a little like the raging flame world of level 1 of the 9 heavens. However, everyone quickly sensed that the surrounding heat wave contained a tremendous amount of heaven and earth essence chi that was far beyond their imagination. In the middle of the secret ground, there was a gigantic tree with a massive trunk that required dozens of people to surround. Every single leaf was more than enough to fit a palace. "Is this the ancient Parasol tree?" Lu Ping raised his head with deep shock in his eyes. Although the leaves of the ancient Parasol tree were emerald green, if one focused their gaze, they could see that every single leaf burned with fine flames. There were already cultivators who could not wait to find a spot to cultivate. Time was precious. Even Su Zimo only had 100 days of cultivation in the Parasol tree secret ground. The closer you get to the Parasol tree, the richer the heaven and earth essence chi will be. Princess Scarlet Rainbow secretly sent a voice transmission to many of her fellow sect mates from Heaven and Earth Academy using her spirit consciousness. Everyone advanced one after another and tried to approach the ancient Parasol tree. Indeed, the closer to the ancient Parasol tree, the richer the heaven and earth essence chi that could be sensed. However, the searing energy contained by every single wisp of heaven and earth essence chi became increasingly terrifying and many cultivators could not withstand it at all. Before long, everyone found a suitable spot for themselves. The furthest distance from the Parasol tree was more than 1,000 feet. For example, Princess Scarlet Rainbow was on the closer end and she was around 200 feet away from the Parasol tree. To begin with, she cultivated fire elemental cultivation techniques that were closer to the aura of the Parasol tree. As such, she had better endurance. Apart from Princess Scarlet Rainbow, Feng Yin and Lu Ping were the closest at less than 100 feet away from the ancient Parasol tree. It was not hard to understand why Feng Yin could reach this point. However, to everyone's surprise, Lu Ping was comparable to Feng Yin. Lu Ping inherited the body of the gigantic willow and possessed a tremendous amount of life force. Coupled with the fact that he was a flora living being like the Parasol tree, that was the reason why he could cultivate here. Right then, a figure passed Feng Yin and Lu Ping and approached the Parasol tree. Su Zimo. Feng Yin looked at that figure with a dark gaze. But soon, as though he recalled something, he sneered and ignored Su Zimo, continuing with his cultivation. Su Zimo arrived beneath the ancient Parasol tree and closed his eyes to sense. The heaven and earth essence chi here was the richest, most searing and berserk. If it was drawn into his body, the destructive power would be shocking. However, it was nothing to the green lotus true body. Su Zimo leaped and landed gently on a gigantic Parasol tree leaf. His body was bathed in flames as he began to absorb and refine heaven and earth essence chi, prepared to break through to become a grade 9 earth immortal. A day passed. The cultivator at the bottom of the earth ranking did not break through. The badge on his body shone and he left the Parasol tree secret ground regrettably. 2 days passed. 10 days passed. Boom. A vibration sounded from a leaf of the Parasol tree as an incomparably powerful aura burst forth and surged into the skies. Although Su Zimo was still in a lotus position, his cultivation realm had already crossed to the level 9 earth essence realm. At the same time, his essence spirit broke through to become a grade 2 heaven immortal. In just 10 days, Su Zimo had already made a breakthrough. Everything happened naturally without any obstacles. Boom. Right then, a vibration sounded not far away from the ancient parasol tree. Ah! Someone stood up and roared into the skies. His black hair danced wildly and he was filled with an extremely powerful and violent aura that had already surpassed the Earth Essence realm. Feng Yin had broken through and entered the Heaven Essence realm, becoming a Heaven Immortal. As a reincarnated perfected immortal, Feng Yin was indeed extraordinarily strong. If he had not encountered Su Zimo who appeared out of nowhere, he would not have ended in such a crushing defeat. Although it seemed difficult to reincarnate and restart the entire cultivation process, his memories recovered more as his cultivation realm increased. With the memories of his previous life, there were many times when bottlenecks in his cultivation could be easily resolved. In that aspect, Feng Yin had a huge advantage. Among the 100 Earth-ranking paragons, Su Zimo was the first to break through while Feng Yin was the first to break through to become a Heaven Immortal. After breaking through that barrier, Feng Yin's essence spirit, blood chi, essence chi and everything else evolved. His injuries healed in the blink of an eye. The regeneration capabilities of Heaven Immortals were even stronger than Earth Immortals. Feng Yin sneered and walked towards the ancient parasol tree. When he was a grade 9 Earth Immortal he could only cultivate at that spot. Now that he was already a Heaven Immortal, his endurance was even stronger and he could come to the parasol tree directly to cultivate. Feng Yin, what are you doing? Princess Scarlet Rainbow looked nervous when she saw that. She was afraid that Feng Yin would attack Su Zimo in the parasol tree secret ground after his breakthrough. Feng Yin sneered without saying anything. He truly had no such intention. Firstly, even though he was now a Heaven Immortal, he did not have absolute confidence of killing Su Zimo, a grade 9 Earth Immortal, here. Right now, Su Zimo was in his peak condition. The methods that Su Zimo displayed in the Earth ranking competition made Feng Yin extremely wary. Unless he was confident of victory, he would definitely not attack Su Zimo rashly. Furthermore, there was no need for him to do anything in the parasol tree secret ground this time round. There would naturally be someone who would help him kill Su Zimo. When she saw Feng Yin sitting on another leaf of the parasol tree without any activity, Princess Scarlet Rainbow was relieved. On the other side, Su Zimo's expression was calm and he did not even open his eyes. If Feng Yin truly dared to attack him, he would not mind killing a second reincarnated perfected immortal. Time passed by and on the 40th day, Lu Ping broke through and became a Heaven Immortal. On the 48th day Yu Feng broke through. On the 66th day Princess Scarlet Rainbow broke through. After Su Zimo broke through to become a grade 9 Earth Immortal, his cultivation was still increasing rapidly. However, at this level, it was difficult to break through and advance without thousands or tens of thousands of years of accumulation. 100 days was still too short. Chapter 2262 Parasol Tree Formation. 2262 Parasol Tree Formation. As time passed by, the number of cultivators in the parasol tree secret ground decreased. By the 100th day, Su Zimo was the only one left in the parasol tree secret ground, sitting on a parasol tree leaf. Everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy was still waiting quietly not far away from the cave, prepared to leave together after Su Zimo came out of seclusion. The strange thing was that Feng Yin did not leave immediately. Instead, he sat not far away with his eyes closed, seemingly waiting for something. Right then, a young man in brocade robes walked over slowly from afar and arrived before the cave before long. Xie Tianhong. When Princess Scarlet Rainbow saw that person, she frowned slightly and murmured, "Isn't he presiding over Spirit Cloud County? Why did he suddenly return to the palace?" "Greetings, Your Highness Tianhong." The two guards at the entrance bowed to the young man in brocade robes. Expressionlessly, Xie Tianhong suddenly sent a voice transmission to the two guards with his spirit consciousness, "Activate the Parasol Tree Formation." Parasol Tree Formation. The two guards were slightly stunned. There was an extremely terrifying formation in the Parasol Tree secret ground. With the Parasol Tree as the foundation, the formation would activate the Sun Essence Fire, Extreme Yin Essence Fire and Earth Core Fire to nourish the Parasol Tree. In fact, divine phoenixes would even appear. Initially, the purpose of the formation was to nurture the ancient Parasol Tree. Under normal circumstances, the ancient Parasol Tree was only suitable to survive in the Parasol Tree world. The environment there was extremely cruel for most living beings and they could not survive at all. However, it was the most suitable for the Parasol Tree to grow. It was not easy to create a secret ground suitable for the ancient Parasol tree to survive. That was the reason for the formation's existence. The entire Parasol tree secret ground would turn into a mini Parasol tree world. At that time, all living beings around the ancient Parasol tree other than the divine phoenixes would be erased by the power of the secret ground. One of the guards looked troubled and said instinctively, "Your Highness, there's only a day left." "There's another?" Before he could finish, he noticed Xie Tianhong smirking and his pupils constricted with a strange black glow. When they noticed the black light, the eyes of the two guards gradually turned black. "Activate the Parasol tree formation now." Xie Tianhong's bewitching voice sounded in the minds of the two guards once more, as though it was deeply rooted and they could not reject it. "Brother Tianhong, why are you here?" Princess Scarlet Rainbow sensed that something was amiss and walked over, asking with a frown. Xie Tianhong turned around and looked at Princess Scarlet Rainbow, who was not far away. He smiled and said, "I heard that you did well in the Earth ranking, so I rushed back to take a look." Xie Tianhong presided over Spirit Cloud County all year round and rarely returned to the palace. As such, Princess Scarlet Rainbow did not have a deep impression of him. Although the two of them had the same father, they had different mothers and rarely interacted with one another. Therefore their feelings for one another were not deep. Princess Scarlet Rainbow did not believe a single word Xie Tianhong said. Right then, two guards not far away suddenly channeled their spirit consciousnesses wildly and conjured hand seals repeatedly, sending essence chi into the water barrier of the cave. "Activate!" The two guards shouted right on the heels of that. A violent bang sounded from the cave and the entire mountain peak shook slightly, as though something huge had happened inside. Xie Tianhong smirked. When the Parasol tree formation was activated, the Endless Sun Essence Fire, Extreme Yin Essence Fire and Earth Core Fire fused into the secret ground. Earth Immortals could not withstand it at all. If divine phoenixes appeared, even grade 9 heaven immortals would be burned to ashes upon entering the secret ground. All foreign living beings around the ancient Parasol tree would have to endure the ferocious attacks of the divine phoenixes and nobody would be spared. In the Parasol tree secret ground, Su Zimo was focused on cultivating when he sensed something. Opening his eyes, he saw that the world in the secret ground was undergoing a huge change and phenomenons were appearing. The ground of the secret ground cracked continuously with scarlet cracks surfacing. Although the cracks looked random when they were connected, they exuded a mysterious aura and scorching lava surged continuously within. At the same time, a fire rain descended from the skies. In the Parasol tree secret ground, flames burned furiously and were ubiquitous. The temperature of the place rose rapidly and surpassed the limits of the green lotus true body before long. Phew! The badge on Su Zimo's waist burned rapidly and turned into ashes in the blink of an eye. The skin of the green lotus true body could not withstand it either and was burned yellow and cracked. Before blood could flow out, it evaporated instantly. Array formation. Su Zimo swept his gaze across the cracks on the ground and could tell what was going on right away. Someone was activating the formation of the Parasol tree secret ground outside, wanting to kill him. Screech! Screech! Right then, two clear and loud phoenix cries sounded. Right on the heels of that, endless lava gathered and transformed into a pair of male and female divine phoenixes in midair. They charged towards Su Zimo with an incomparably scorching aura. All beings had to retreat in the face of the divine phoenixes perching on the Parasol tree. That thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind and he instantly realized where the killing intent of the two divine phoenixes was. Su Zimo had a fearless expression and channeled his essence spirit, releasing a life force that seemed to have come from the ancient era that surpassed the divine phoenixes. In the face of that aura, even the divine phoenixes had to bow down. That was the aura of the taboo dragon phoenix. The moment the divine phoenixes arrived, they stopped in their tracks and hesitated, as though they sensed something. They circled around Su Zimo and danced up and down. Even the divine phoenixes conjured by the Parasol tree formation had imprints of the divine phoenix race from the depths of their souls. In their memories, living beings that could emit such an aura were existences that surpassed them and were supreme. The divine phoenixes were a little cautious and confused as they circled around Su Zimo to test the waters. Although the divine phoenixes did not make any further moves, as the Parasol tree formation was completely activated, the Sun Essence Fire, Extreme Yin Essence Fire and Earth Core Fire surged into the secret ground continuously and the surrounding temperature rose rapidly. The Green Lotus true body could no longer withstand it. Even if the divine phoenixes did not attack further, he would die here. However, at the same time, the Sun Essence Fire, Extreme Yin Essence Fire and Earth Core Fire carried an unimaginable amount of Heaven and Earth Essence Chi. All the Essence Chi surged into Su Zimo's body and the Green Lotus True body was about to explode. Although the regeneration capabilities of the Green Lotus True body were strong, he could not withstand such a tremendous power. Right then a thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. Suddenly, he took out the piece of Jupiter wood he had obtained in the 9 heavens and absorbed it wildly. Under normal circumstances, it would take at least dozens of years for the Green Lotus True body to absorb and refine the Jupiter wood. But now, under the stimulation of external forces, if the Green Lotus True body wanted to hold on, he would have to absorb the power of Jupiter wood wildly to accelerate his body's expenditure to defend against the high temperature of the secret ground. The life force in Jupiter wood was decreasing at a visible speed. In fact, the absorption process of the Green Lotus True body was already a little violent and terrifying. Not only was he absorbing the Jupiter wood, even the life force of the Parasol tree was being absorbed as well. Chapter 2263 Suspicion. 2263 Suspicion. Deep in the Yin-Yang Palace outside the secret ground. Parasol Tree Formation. Princess Scarlet Rainbow exclaimed in shock when she sensed the energy fluctuation released by the cave. What's going on? Lu Ping and the others ran over with bewildered expressions. What are you guys doing? Right then, Xie Qinhong's expression was cold and his eyes were filled with killing intent as he hollered at the 2 guards not far away. The black light in the eyes of the 2 guards dissipated and they suddenly shuddered, waking up. Sensing the fluctuation from the Parasol Tree secret ground, their faces turned pale as they finally realized what had happened. However, the Parasol Tree formation had already been activated and the 2 of them could not close it given their capabilities. Aye. One of the guards looked at Xie Tianhong as though he wanted to explain something. Xie Tianhong interrupted coldly, the 2 of you have ulterior motives. How dare you activate the Parasol Tree formation in advance and commit such a grave crime? Before his sentence was finished, Xie Tianhong suddenly reached out and flicked the foreheads of 2 guards with his slender fingers. A faint scratch appeared on the foreheads of the 2 guards and blood oozed out gradually, growing larger. Finally, the foreheads of the 2 guards slid down neatly. Both of their heads were sliced into 2 by Xie Tianhong casually and their essence spirits died on the spot without a chance to escape. The 2 guards were also grade 9 heaven immortals and had not expected Xie Tianhong to suddenly attack them with such ferocity. If I don't kill the 2 of you, how will the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom account to Heaven and Earth Academy? Xie Tianhong looked at their corpses and said coldly. This change happened extremely suddenly and Princess Scarlet Rainbow and the others were stunned. However, Princess Scarlet Rainbow reacted quickly. She looked at Xie Tianhong deeply before saying as she sped towards the palace, I'll go look for the others. Lu Ping, hurry and inform Elder Zhong and the others to come over. The sudden activation of the Parasol Tree formation was indeed done by the 2 guards. However, Princess Scarlet Rainbow was no fool. She could tell that there was definitely something else. Xie Tianhong's appearance was way too coincidental. The moment he appeared, the 2 guards activated the formation. Thereafter, Xie Tianhong killed the 2 of them on the spot. Rather than giving Heaven and Earth Academy an explanation, it was more like killing them to silence them. Xie Tianhong had an indifferent expression and smiled. He did not stop Princess Scarlet Rainbow and the others from leaving. Even if someone came and closed the Parasol Tree formation, Su Zimo would have turned into ashes a long time ago. Actually, there were many ways for him to kill Su Zimo in the territory of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom. However, Su Zimo was the top of the Earth ranking after all. If he killed openly, on the one hand, it would attract the hostility of Heaven and Earth Academy. On the other hand, he would also be criticized by everyone. If he killed silently, it would be difficult for him to reveal his methods and he would not be able to seek credit from Fairy Meng Yao. Now, he had released a secret skill and killed Su Zimo in the Parasol Tree secret ground with the help of 2 guards. Even if anyone could see through it, they would not have any evidence and would not be able to do anything to him. However, anyone who paid attention would be able to tell that he was the one who did it. This was exactly what Xie Tianhong wanted to achieve. At that time, there could be many explanations for Su Zimo's death and he could just get someone to spread rumors everywhere without affecting the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom. On the other side, Feng Yin, who was initially resting with his eyes closed, suddenly sent a voice transmission to the cultivator behind him with his spirit consciousness. Su Zimo triggered the Parasol tree formation and died in the Parasol tree secret ground. Spread the news and let all the factions take a look. All right. The Imperial Wind Temple cultivator replied and turned to leave. Top of the Earth ranking. With a mocking expression, Feng Yin muttered to himself softly, Su Zimo, you've already become the top of the Earth ranking with the shortest lifespan in history. You're the greatest joke in history. Parasol tree formation. When Xie Qingqing heard Princess Scarlet Rainbow's words, his expression changed as he hurriedly took out a messenger talisman from his storage bag and tore it apart. I'm afraid a perfected immortal will be required in order to dispel the Parasol tree formation. Xie Qingqing said and sped towards the Parasol tree secret ground with Princess Scarlet Rainbow. Before long the two of them arrived. In that short period of time, many cultivators had already gathered outside the Parasol tree secret ground. There were people from the Zixuan Immortal Kingdom, Mountain Sea Immortal Sect and various major sects and factions. The death of the top of the Earth ranking in the Parasol tree secret ground was a huge matter. The cultivators who had yet to leave hurried over to watch the show. I heard that Su Zimo is dead. It's said that even heaven immortals won't be able to survive against the sudden activation of the Parasol tree formation. He just ascended to the top of the Earth ranking. To think that he would encounter such a calamity. Many cultivators discussed softly with different expressions. When Xie Qingqing and Princess Scarlet Rainbow arrived, they pushed through the crowd and arrived at the front. Xie Qingqing looked at the two guards who died tragically before turning to Xie Tianhong. What happened? For some reason, the two of them suddenly went crazy and activated the Parasol tree formation. I didn't have time to stop them. Xie Tianhong did not even look at Xie Qingqing. His tone was indifferent, as though he was talking about something insignificant. Suddenly went crazy? Xie Qingqing was still staring at Xie Tianhong's face. Lowering his voice, he said slowly, From what I know, your bewitching technique has already reached its peak. Xie Tianhong did not look at Xie Qingqing and merely asked, What are you trying to say? Tianhong, why did you suddenly return to the palace in such a secretive manner without informing anyone? Xie Qingqing asked again. Why? Xie Tianhong raised his brow slightly. Am I supposed to report to you when I return to the palace, Xie Qingqing? Taking a deep breath of air, Xie Qingqing did not get angry and continued asking, You returned to the palace and suddenly appeared here. Thereafter, the Parasol tree formation was activated. Isn't that way too coincidental? Are you suspecting me? Finally, Xie Tianhong turned around and glared at Xie Qingqing's beautiful face coldly. I wouldn't dare to. Even so, Xie Qingqing did not avoid his gaze and insisted, I'm just asking you to explain yourself, Brother Tianhong. Xie Tianhong's expression darkened as he hollered, Xie Qingqing, watch your tone. Think about your background and who are you talking to? How dare an idle prince like you question me and ask me to explain myself? The Yin-Yang Immortal King had many descendants. Although they were all princes and princesses, their statuses were worlds apart. For example, Xie Tianhong presided over Spirit Cloud County. He ruled over 5,000 kilometers of territory and had a high status. However, Xie Qingqing was merely a prince in name. The words, your background, that Xie Tianhong mentioned stung the wound in the depths of Xie Qingqing's heart. Instinctively, Xie Qingqing clenched his fists and lowered his gaze. Beneath his seemingly calm expression was immense rage and hatred. As though she thought of something, Princess Scarlet Rainbow reached out and gripped Xie Qingqing's fist gently, giving him a sense of warmth. Chapter 2264, 2264 Breakthrough. 2264 Breakthrough. Parasol Tree Secret Ground. Su Zimo assumed a lotus position on the ancient Parasol tree. He was surrounded by the divine phoenixes and the heaven and earth essence chi in his body surged as his aura rose continuously. Initially, he could only cultivate to the mid-stage grade 9 earth immortal realm in 100 days. However, because of the activation of the Parasol tree formation earlier on, endless heaven and earth essence chi surged into the secret ground and was absorbed and refined by the green lotus true body. Coupled with the immense power of the Jupiter wood and the ancient Parasol tree, Su Zimo absorbed all their life essence. In an extremely short period of time, his cultivation realm had already reached the peak of a grade 9 earth immortal. He was only a step away from becoming a heaven immortal. Due to the augmentation of the flames of the Parasol tree formation, Su Zimo had already refined the Jupiter wood completely, Even the ancient Parasol tree looked a little dispirited after its life essence was drained. Of course, this ancient tree had existed for too long and the life force it nurtured was immeasurable, it would not wither just like that. In Su Zimo's consciousness, the creation lotus platform spun slowly and transformed at every moment, emitting a resplendent glow. The power in the green lotus true body was already at its limits and could no longer absorb any heaven and earth essence chi. Everything was ready except for an opportunity. Su Zimo took out the Parasol tree elixir from his storage bag and swallowed it. The Parasol tree elixir was refined using the leaves and fruits of the Parasol tree along with many immortal herbs and spirit wood. It could greatly reduce the obstacles earth immortals encountered when breaking through to the heaven immortal realm. The moment the spirit pill entered his stomach, it exploded and turned into a scorching warm current that flowed through his limbs and bones. A tremendous amount of energy surged into his bloodline and struck the spirit platform of his consciousness, nourishing his essence spirit. Su Zimo could clearly sense that the barrier of the heavenly essence realm was extremely close but he could not reach it. The leap from the earth essence realm to the heaven essence realm was a major cultivation realm after all. In just 100 days, Su Zimo broke through from a grade 8 earth immortal to the borders of the heaven essence realm. It was unimaginable and the difficulty was exponential. He was just a little bit away from breaking through that barrier. Right then, in his consciousness, the hell suppression tripod that had been refining a few treasures for the past few days suddenly trembled gently. The final tripod wall was completely repaired. An ancient aura emanated from the hell suppression tripod, as though it had reversed from the endless river of time and had seen through the vicissitudes. The cracks on the hell suppression tripod had already healed completely. Su Zimo could clearly sense that the hell suppression tripod was different from before. However, he could not pinpoint the exact difference. Suddenly, the white tiger's sacred soul on the fourth tripod wall opened its eyes and released a chilling killing intent that was not inferior to the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. A lineage memory surged into Su Zimo's mind. At the same time, golden Sanskrit words appeared on the fourth tripod wall and connected perfectly to the Sanskrit words on the other 3 tripod walls. The reparation of the hell suppression tripod meant that the complete Prajna Nirvana Sutra had reappeared. The golden Sanskrit words on the 4 walls of the hell suppression tripod seemed to have fallen off and appeared in Su Zimo's consciousness. Su Zimo's consciousness turned golden and shone like a sacred temple of the Buddhist monasteries. Sanskrit sounded endlessly and there were faint phantoms of Buddhas and the cries of dragons and elephants. The endless might of the Buddhist monasteries surged within his consciousness. Su Zimo could not comprehend the sutra on the 4th tripod wall within a short period of time. However, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra was a taboo mystic classic after all. After it was completely recovered, the golden light that spread out from the Sanskrit surged into the green lotus essence spirit and caused a change to the creation lotus platform and green lotus true body. The green lotus true body sat on the creation lotus platform with a layer of Buddhist light around him. Wielding the Trinity auspicious Jade, he lowered his head with a dignified expression. Boom. It was as though a shackle had snapped within Su Zimo's body. He could clearly sense that his lifespan had increased to 300,000 years. He had broken through. Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and an endless stream of heaven and earth essence chi surged into his nose and mouth from the Parasol tree secret ground, surging within the green lotus true body. With the might of the taboo mystic classic, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, Su Zimo finally broke through the barrier and entered the heaven essence realm, becoming a grade 1 heaven immortal. At the same time, the green lotus essence spirit received the baptism of Sanskrit and was nourished by the creation lotus platform. Its cultivation realm broke through once more and it was at the level 3 heaven essence realm. The transformation of Su Zimo was not over yet. The green lotus true body absorbed a large amount of energy from the Jupiter wood and the ancient Parasol tree. Coupled with the breakthrough of Su Zimo's cultivation realm as well as the green lotus essence spirit realm, the green lotus true body underwent a tremendous change as well. In his consciousness, all the lotus petals on the creation lotus platform fell off and regrew, turning emerald green. After the 10th circle, the 11th circle grew and blossomed silently, revealing a flower bud that emitted endless life force and a lotus platform filled with vitality. There were already 99 lotus holes on the lotus platform. The creation lotus platform transformed as well. The green lotus true body was also breaking through and undergoing a complete transformation. Grade 11 creation green lotus. Su Zimo's blood chi surged and every single inch of his skin shone with a jade green glow. He emitted a faint fragrance and his life force was immense. Even the ancient parasol tree he sat on revealed a hint of fear and did not dare to sway, afraid that it would disturb Su Zimo. This opportunity was way too important for Su Zimo. If not for this 10,000-year meet and the Earth ranking, it would have taken him at least 1,000 years to break through to the Heaven Essence realm. But now, in just 100 days he had gone from a grade 8 Earth Immortal to the current level 1 Heaven Essence realm. Even Yun Ting could not match that speed of improvement. Of course, such an opportunity was difficult to replicate and could only be chanced upon. Such an effect could not be achieved if there was even a single segment missing. If not for the sudden activation of this array formation in the Parasol Tree secret ground that forced Su Zimo to refine the Jupiter wood and snatch the life force of the ancient Parasol Tree, he would have had to return to Heaven and Earth Academy and continue his seclusion before he could break through. Su Zimo's breakthrough to the Heaven Essence realm did not merely raise his cultivation realm. The Green Lotus True Body advanced a realm as well and his combat strength increased exponentially. This was a complete transformation from head to toe. Right now, Su Zimo was a humanoid grade 11 creation Green Lotus. Right then something crossed Su Zimo's mind. Under normal circumstances, after the creation Green Lotus grew to grade 9, there would be a huge change with every advancement and a treasure would be born. The first two were the 9 Heavens Living Soil and Trinity Auspicious Jade. Both treasures were extremely powerful and mysterious for Su Zimo. He did not know what changes the Green Lotus True Body would undergo after this transformation. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly realized that something had appeared in the hands of the Green Lotus Essence Spirit on the Creation Lotus platform. It was a horsetail whip with a jade green handle. It had snow-white threads that were spotless. The Green Lotus True Body held the Trinity Auspicious Jade in his left hand and a horsetail whip in his right. A resplendent glow enveloped him and he was extraordinary like a god. Chapter 2265 2265 Ashes. 2265 Ashes. In the depths of the Yenyang Palace, more and more cultivators gathered outside the Parasol Tree secret ground. Through Feng Yin, news of the change in the Parasol Tree secret ground spread through the palace at the fastest speed and attracted countless cultivators. Apart from the major sects and factions, even some of the other princes and princesses of the Yenyang Palace came over to watch the show. What's going on? I heard that the Parasol Tree formation was activated and Su Zimo died inside? Yes, this must be Tianhong's doing. Why else would he be here? Xie Qingqing is arguing with Tianhong? Does he have a death wish? A few princes of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom conversed with their spirit consciousnesses in secret. What's going on? The elders of Heaven and Earth Academy finally arrived. They pushed through the crowd and rushed to the front. Fellow Taoists, my condolences. Xie Tianhong pretended to be sad and cupped his fists. For some reason the two of them went crazy and activated a formation in the secret ground. By the time I attacked it was already too late. Why did the two of them suddenly go crazy and activate the formation? The elders of the academy frowned. Although they were not present, their intuition and experience told them that something was amiss. Things were not as simple as Xie Tianhong had described. Princess Scarlet Rainbow glanced at Xie Tianhong with an unfriendly expression and clenched fists. Sensing something amiss, the elders of Heaven and Earth Academy shifted their gazes towards Xie Tianhong. Xie Tianhong had a calm and fearless expression as he met the gazes of the Heaven and Earth Academy elders with a faint smile. Scarlet Rainbow, Your Highness Qingqing, what's going on? Elder Zhong looked at Xie Qingqing and Scarlet Rainbow and asked in a deep voice. Xie Qingqing had a conflicted expression and opened his mouth slightly, wanting to speak but stopped. In the royal family of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom, be it in terms of status or cultivation realm, he was way inferior compared to Xie Tianhong. Most importantly, he had no evidence. How could he accuse a prince who ruled over a territory without any evidence based on his mere guesses and suspicions? If he stood out now, there was a high chance that he would attract trouble and become the target of everyone. I suspect that it was Xie Tianhong's doing. After a long silence, Xie Qingqing suddenly spoke in a shocking manner. This was openly accusing a high-status prince who ruled over a territory in front of everyone. Furthermore, it was a fallout between the royal family of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom. More importantly, the person who died inside was the top of the Earth ranking, Su Zimo. This concerned Heaven and Earth Academy, and if this was not handled properly, there was a high chance that a rift would break out between the two factions. Xie Tianhong's expression turned cold as he said in an unfriendly tone, Xie Qingqing, how dare you slander me? Xie Qingqing is just a lowlife. Brother Tianhong, there's no need to stoop to his level. Not far away, another prince walked over slowly with a mocking expression. That's right. Yet another prince stood out as well. Xie Qingqing, even if father's noble bloodline flows through your body, you can't break free from the insidious nature of a lowlife. Do you think that you're qualified to ascend the throne just because you framed Brother Tianhong? You're far from that. Before Xie Tianhong even had to explain himself, other princes of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom stood out and spoke up for him. Xie Qingqing was expressionless and his face was pale. He was a prince of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom and had a noble status in the eyes of others. However, his background had always been extremely unbearable in the eyes of the royal family of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom. His mother came from the lower worlds and even died for no reason. Those things had always been buried in the depths of his heart and were the deepest scars. Right now, those wounds were being reopened. Swoosh. Right then, a streak of light sped over from afar at an astonishing speed with a powerful aura. In the blink of an eye, it descended. Perfected immortal Xieling. When he received Xie Qingqing's messenger talisman, he rushed over right away. He had not expected such an accident to happen in that short final 100 days. What's going on? Xieling asked. Xie Tianhong repeated what he said earlier on. Xieling looked at Xie Tianhong fixedly. He was ranked second among the descendants of the Yenyang Immortal King and was older than many princes and princesses present. He knew everyone's temperament and actions like the back of his hand. Naturally, he could tell that things were not as simple as Xie Tianhong made it out to be. Furthermore, when he thought about how Xie Tianhong admired the Zither Immortal, there was a high chance that it was done by Xie Tianhong. Xieling remained silent. Those speculations circled through his mind, but he did not say them. For the sake of the big picture, there was indeed no need to expose this matter and let others gossip about it. Your Highness Xieling, please hurry and close the Parasol tree formation. Elder Zhong said hurriedly when he saw Xieling appear. Xieling sighed gently and said apologetically, the Parasol tree formation has been activated for a few hours now. Fellow Taoists, you should be mentally prepared. Even if Su Zimo is dead, we have to see his corpse. Elder, he said angrily. Xie Tianhong shrugged his shoulders gently and added indifferently, once the formation is activated, a grade 9 heaven immortal will have turned into ashes in an hour. You guys will be disappointed if you enter. There was no hint of apology in Xie Tianhong's tone. Instead, there was a hint of smugness. Turned into ashes without a corpse remaining. The eyes of everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy dimmed in shock and anger. Your Highness Xieling, the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom has to account for this matter. Elder Zhong tried his best to suppress the grief and indignation in his heart and said in a deep voice. Isn't it enough for 2 grade 9 heaven immortals to die with him? Before Xieling could speak, Xie Tianhong asked instead. The 2 guards he killed earlier on had extraordinary cultivation realms as well? Both of them were grade 9 heaven immortals. How is that comparable? Elder Zhong shouted angrily when he saw Xie Tianhong's nonchalant attitude. Xie Tianhong laughed and asked coolly, I've already killed the murderers on the spot. How else do you guys want us to account for things? The elders of Heaven and Earth Academy were indignant but had nowhere to vent. Did they really want Xie Tianhong to die as well? Notwithstanding the fact that they did not have any evidence. Even if there was evidence, this was the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom and that would definitely not happen. Su Zimo has just obtained the top of the Earth ranking and helped Heaven and Earth Academy become famous in Divine Firmament Mainland. To think that he would encounter such a calamity. He deserved it. He was too sharp and offended so many experts. It's already decent for him to survive till this point. Many cultivators whispered. Some of them felt pity while others gloated. So what if you obtain the top of the Earth ranking? Is it of any use if you die so quickly? The frustration in Feng Yin's heart was swept away as he thought to himself with a smile. Xieling sighed. I'd better turn off the Parasol tree formation first. Let's go in and take a look. Perhaps Su Zimo might be blessed by the heavens. Xieling did not manage to finish his sentence. He knew that it was only a consolation. At the side, Xie Tianhong chuckled and shook his head. It would be a miracle if Su Zimo is still alive. Chapter 2266, 2266 Immense Benefits. 2266 Immense Benefits. Xia Ling released a massive spirit consciousness and a faint halo appeared behind his head. True essence gathered in his hands and he conjured hand seals repeatedly, entering the Parasol tree secret ground. The energy fluctuation in the cave calmed down before long. Everyone follow me. With an apologetic expression, Xia Ling sighed and led the way into the Parasol tree secret ground. Everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy rushed in hurriedly as well. Xia Tianhong, Feng Yin and the other cultivators could not help but enter curiously. Everyone was stunned and dumbfounded when they entered the Parasol tree secret ground. On the gigantic ancient Parasol tree, a green-robed cultivator sat on a gigantic leaf. He had refined features and Heaven and Earth essence chi surged within his body with a powerful aura. He was not dead. How was that possible? What the hell? Xia Tianhong froze for a moment. Disbelief flashed through his eyes before turning into shock, doubt and coldness. Gradually, his expression darkened. Feng Yin's expression was terrible as well. Ha 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 ha. When everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy saw that, they burst into laughter with delighted expressions. Xia Ling heaved a sigh of relief. It was for the best that Su Zimo was safe and sound. Otherwise, who knew how much trouble would be caused? The Parasol tree formation failed to kill Su Zimo. He's way too lucky. Didn't Xia Tianhong say that even a grade 9 Heaven Immortal would be burned to ashes when the Parasol tree formation was activated? Why? Many cultivators looked at Xia Tianhong with strange gazes. Xia Qingqing heaved a sigh of relief. Princess Scarlet Rainbow smiled as well. Junior brother Su, it's great that you're fine. Right then, Su Zimo opened his eyes slowly and swept his gaze across everyone's faces, pausing slightly on Xia Tianhong and Feng Yin. Everyone present had different expressions. Some were delighted, some were shocked and some were puzzled. However, only the two of them looked extremely indignant. In a flash, Su Zimo descended from the ancient Parasol tree and walked over slowly. You. Right then, Xia Ling's spirit consciousness scanned Su Zimo and his pupils constricted with a look of disbelief. You've broken through to the Heaven Immortal realm. Xia Ling's words caused a huge stir in the crowd. Many cultivators released their spirit consciousnesses and scanned Su Zimo. Indeed. That's impossible. Before Su Zimo entered the Parasol tree secret ground, he was clearly a grade 8 Earth Immortal. In just 100 days of cultivation he broke through 2 cultivation realms in succession? There was even a major cultivation realm difference. Feng Yin frowned and could not help but say. Although he was a reincarnated perfected immortal, he had never seen such a cultivation speed. What sort of talent did one have to be able to reach this level? 2 cultivation realms in 100 days is probably unprecedented. Could Su Zimo be a grade 9 Earth Immortal to begin with and hid his cultivation realm? Impossible. We saw Su Zimo break through to a grade 9 Earth Immortal in the Parasol tree secret ground. The crowd was in an uproar as they discussed. In everyone's hearts, this was even more shocking than Su Zimo being safe and sound in the Parasol tree formation. This was beyond common sense and everyone's understanding. It was not only the cultivators present. Even Xia Ling pondered for a long time before gradually accepting the truth. Zimo, what's going on? Why are you? Elder Zhong could not help but ask. Su Zimo smiled gently. Initially, I was indeed unable to break through to the Heaven Immortal realm in 100 days. However, not long ago, a formation in this secret ground suddenly activated and by some freak coincidence, helped me. I wonder who is the loyal fellow Taoist who helped me as such. Su Zimo looked at Xia Tianhong and asked with a fake smile. Feng Yin was a cultivator of Imperial Wind Temple after all and most likely did not have such power in the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom. As for the unfamiliar man in brocade robes, he looked like he had a noble status. Although he hid it well, Su Zimo could sense a hint of hostility from this person with his spirit perception. For some reason, the 2 guards guarding this place suddenly activated the formation. They've already been killed by Tianhong. Perfected Immortal Xia Ling explained at the side. Since Su Zimo was safe and sound, he did not want this matter to expand further and pushed everything onto the 2 dead men. Oh. Su Zimo chuckled with a mocking expression. He looked at Xia Tianhong and said leisurely, if that's the case I'll have to thank you for your help, Your Highness. Everyone could hear the sarcasm in Su Zimo's tone. Xia Tianhong knew that this matter could not be hidden at all. His gaze was cold and his tone was sinister. not concealing the killing intent in his heart at all. "There's no need to thank me. We'll meet again if there's a chance in the future." Su Zimo smiled as well. "If we meet again, I'll give you a huge gift." Both parties were smiling, but every single word contained a chilling killing intent. Many cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat. Su Zimo had just advanced to the Heaven Immortal realm, and yet, he dared to threaten Xie Tianhong. The boldness of the top of the earth ranking was indeed far superior to others. Sure. Xie Tianhong had a high status and was a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Naturally, he did not take Su Zimo's threat seriously and sneered fearlessly, "I'll wait." With that said, Xie Tianhong turned to leave without any intention of lingering. If the Parasol tree formation could not kill Su Zimo, he would only be embarrassing himself by staying here. With perfected immortal Xialing and many cultivators of Heaven and Earth Academy around, there was no way he could kill Su Zimo openly. However, this failure made Xie Tianhong even more determined to find an opportunity to kill Su Zimo in the future. "Let's go too." Everyone dispersed as well. In the blink of an eye, Xialing was the only one left in the Parasol tree secret ground. He looked at the ancient Parasol tree and frowned slightly. He could clearly sense that the life essence in the ancient Parasol tree had decreased significantly and a few leaves were slightly yellowed. Thankfully I returned in time. Otherwise, this ancient Parasol tree might not have been spared. Xialing was speechless. Su Zimo followed many cultivators of his sect to rest in the palace. After bidding farewell to Xie Qingqing and the others, he prepared to leave the Yang Immortal Kingdom and return to Heaven and Earth Academy. This time round, Su Zimo had benefited immensely. After returning to Heaven and Earth Academy, he wanted to enter seclusion immediately and absorb as much of his gains as possible. He had obtained many cultivation resources at the top of the Earth ranking this time round. Coupled with the Dragon Divine Pill he obtained on the Dragon Abyss Star previously, it was enough for him to cultivate in seclusion. The Hell Suppression Tripod was completely repaired and the Taboo Mystic Classic, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, was complete as well. At the end of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, there were 2 more dermic seals that were incomparably profound. Given his current cultivation, he could not understand them at all. However, now that the White Tiger Sacred Soul was awakened, he could cultivate the secret skill on the 4th wall that was passed down to him. There was also the 3rd treasure derived from the Grade 11 Creation Green Lotus, the Primordial Unity Horsetail Whip. The Horsetail Whip was extremely powerful and could be tough and flexible. Compared to the 9 Heavens Living Soil and Trinity Auspicious Jade, it was more suitable as an offensive dermic treasure. In the Parasol Tree secret ground, flames burned and divine phoenixes appeared. Su Zimo even refined the 7 Tails Phoenix Feather Fan. After absorbing a large amount of energy, the cracks on the 7 Tails Phoenix Feather Fan had already healed completely. Although the dermic treasure had not recovered to the level of a pure Yang Spirit treasure, it was already a top-tier heaven-grade dermic treasure. Chapter 2267 Killing Midway. 2267 Killing Midway. It had been more than 100 days since the end of the 10,000-year meet. The Battle of the Earth ranking had long spread through the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom and even all over Divine Firmament mainland, causing countless cultivators to discuss it fervently. When Su Zimo and the others left the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom and walked on the long street of the capital, they could clearly sense the excited gazes of many cultivators in the capital. Many cultivators even had looks of admiration in their eyes. "Look, that's Su Zimo. I thought that he was a malicious fiend born with 3 heads and 6 arms to be able to kill so many people. To think that he's a refined scholar." That's right. If no one mentioned it, who would have guessed that he was the top of the Earth ranking? Many cultivators stopped in their tracks and discussed softly, looking over. Every 10,000 years, there would be a top of the Earth ranking. However, none of the predecessors could produce such shocking results and make such a name for themselves. He killed 18 peak Earth Immortals single-handedly, including a reincarnated perfected immortal. Even after consecutive battles, he could defeat the 2nd reincarnated perfected immortal and obtain the top of the Earth ranking. The Battle of the Earth ranking this time round was unprecedented. I heard that Su Zimo came from an ordinary background and came from the lower worlds. So what? A group of paragons and monster incarnates of the upper world and even 2 reincarnated perfected immortals became his stepping stones. The Divine Firmament Immortal meet is in less than 10,000 years. I wonder if he'll have a chance to be on the Heaven ranking. If the Heaven ranking opens up, there'll probably be another bloodbath. Yun Ting has already issued a personal challenge and there will definitely be a battle between the two of them. That battle will probably be the most eye-catching battle in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain in hundreds of thousands of years. Fufu Su Zimo has offended so many people. We'll see if he can survive till the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. Someone sneered with a disdainful expression. Su Zimo listened to the clamor around him with an indifferent expression and did not take it to heart. Everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy was smug as well. In this 10,000-year meet, Heaven and Earth Academy was in the limelight and occupied 3 spots in the top 10 of the Earth ranking. Su Zimo's sudden appearance shocked everyone. However, Lu Ping's meteoric rise and obtaining 3rd on the Earth ranking was a pleasant surprise. If Yi Fei had not died this time round, Heaven and Earth Academy would have been the biggest winner. Before long, Su Zimo and the others arrived at the teleportation formation in the capital, prepared to activate it and return to Heaven and Earth Academy. Zimo, Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping. After returning to the academy, the 3 of you will follow me to meet the Grand Elder. Elder Zhong said with a smile, the 3 of you have already reached the Heaven Essence realm. You can join the inner sect now. In Heaven and Earth Academy, the promotion of cultivators and the appointment of various positions in the academy were handled by the Grand Elder. Su Zimo and the other 2 had all entered the Heaven Immortal realm in the Parasol Tree secret ground. This time round, they became famous in the Battle of the Earth ranking and it was only logical for the 3 of them to join the inner sect. As they said that, everyone stepped into the teleportation formation. The formation patterns shone bedazzlingly and a gigantic beam of light burst forth, enveloping everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy. Immediately after, everyone felt a tremendous tug and disappeared from the teleportation formation. The Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom was extremely far from Heaven and Earth Academy. However, with the teleportation formation, they could return in about dozens of breaths. Everyone shuttled through the spatial tunnel. Even for grade 9 Heaven Immortals, they would lose their 5 senses and could not sense the passage of time. Suddenly, everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy shuddered and their 5 senses recovered. We've returned to Heaven and Earth Academy? Something doesn't seem right. Where is this? Everyone looked around but could only see darkness, as though they were still in the spatial tunnel and had not left. Did something happen during the teleportation process? Elder Zhong frowned and murmured. Could the teleportation formation have been destroyed? Su Zimo asked. No. Elder Zhong shook his head. Under normal circumstances, the teleportation formation had already been activated successfully and everyone had entered the spatial tunnel. Even if someone destroyed the teleportation formation in the capital of Yenyang, it would not affect them. Right then, a tremendous might descended. The terror of that might was unimaginable and everyone could not resist at all. The difference was too great. Compared to that tremendous might, everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy were like ants. Right on the heels of that, killing intent surged over. Everyone in Heaven and Earth Academy, Su Zimo included, felt a strong aura of death, as though they would die the next moment. What happened? Is that a perfected immortal? In Heaven and Earth Academy, some cultivators were terrified and their voices trembled. Su Zimo had a grim expression and remained silent. He had experienced such a powerful might and terrifying aura personally when he ascended to the upper world and it was still fresh in his memories. That pressure was definitely not from a perfected immortal. The elders of Heaven and Earth Academy turned pale. Elder Zhong's heart sank as he shook his head. An expert who can release such a might has probably surpassed the perfected immortal realm. Surpassing the perfected immortal realm meant that everyone's eyes widened in shock. Could it be an immortal king? At that thought, everyone's eyes revealed a hint of despair. At the same time, many cultivators understood that only an immortal king would have such methods to stop them from exiting the spatial tunnel. However, no one could understand why an immortal king would attack them. Among them, the strongest were only grade 9 Heaven Immortals. There was no way they could come into contact with immortal kings. Why would an expert of that level appear? Furthermore, they were from Heaven and Earth Academy. Which immortal king would attack them? Senior, please show mercy. Elder Zhong tried his best to maintain his composure and took a deep breath. We're from Heaven and Earth Academy. Is there any misunderstanding? Nobody replied. However, that terrifying might still enveloped everyone's heads. Furthermore, the killing intent was intensifying. In fact, everyone felt that they could die here at any moment. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes coldly. He had a feeling that the expert hiding in the dark was most likely here for him. However, he could not determine where the expert came from. It was unlikely to be King Yunyu. Given King Yunyu's personality, he would definitely not hide it and would most likely appear directly. If it wasn't King Yunyu, who could it be? An immortal king invited by Zither immortal Meng Yao? Or was it an immortal king on the side of Prince Yuanzhua or the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom? Perhaps the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom? Su Zimo had snatched 5 treasures from the 9 heavens and absorbed a large amount of life essence from the ancient Parasol tree in the Parasol tree secret ground while offending Xie Tianhong. It might be possible if the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom wanted to kill him. If an immortal king-level expert attacked, he would not be able to defend even if he summoned all 4 sacred souls on the Hell Suppression tripod. Chapter 2268 Earthgrade Secret Pavilion. 2268 Earthgrade Secret Pavilion. Sigh, what's the need for this? Right then, a sigh sounded in the vast darkness. Immediately after, another tremendous might surged into the spatial tunnel and everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy felt their bodies lighten. The pressure and suffocation from earlier on vanished instantly and they regained their freedom. Before everyone could react, their 5 senses were severed once more and the world spun. It was as though they were shuttling through the spatial tunnel once more. After a dozen breaths, a bedazzling light flashed before everyone's eyes and their vision gradually returned. The surroundings were filled with fresh air and rich heaven and earth essence chi. The plants were sumptuous and filled with vitality. There were jade pavilions and waterfalls flying in the skies. From time to time, cultivators would soar through the air in a carefree manner. In a flash, everyone had already returned to Heaven and Earth Academy. We're still alive. We seem to have returned safely. Everything before us is not a hallucination, right? When everyone recalled the situation earlier on, they felt that it was surreal. Su Zimo frowned in deep thought and remained silent. When he ascended, he experienced an immortal king assassination attempt. However, that time was completely different from this time. Back then, King Yunyu appeared openly without hiding at all. However, this time round he did not know who the attacker was. In fact, he was not even sure if the attacker was here for him. If this person was not targeting him, why would their group provoke an immortal king expert? If this person was here for him, what was the reason? Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Prince Yuanzhua, the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom or the Pang clan? Every faction had a reason to attack him. However, it was as though neither faction was worth mobilizing such a large force. Unknown enemies were the most terrifying. Actually, all these years, even after Su Zimo joined Heaven and Earth Academy, he had always felt an inexplicable sense of danger. Previously, during the Immortal Sect selection, Prince Yuanzhua suddenly came looking for him and recognized his identity. That matter was a little strange. Although a long time had passed, Su Zimo had been thinking about it. Was there any connection between that incident and the assassination attempt he experienced this time round? What happened earlier on? Right then, Princess Scarlet Rainbow snapped out of her stupor and could not help but ask, why would an immortal king-level expert target us? I'm not sure either. Elder Zhong shook his head. Immortal kings are almost peak experts of the upper world and won't attack casually, let alone deal with us. The elders of Heaven and Earth Academy were puzzled as well. Who was the one who saved us later on? Lu Ping asked curiously. Elder, he said, if I'm not wrong, it should be the Sect Master. The Sect Master of Heaven and Earth Academy. This person's status in Divine Firmament Mainland was definitely not weaker than King Jin or King Yin-Yang. Elder Zhong said, the Sect Master's wisdom is unparalleled. He can see through heaven and earth and divine all living beings. He knows everything. In Divine Firmament Mainland, a huge commotion and killing intent like the attack of an immortal king would most likely not be able to escape his senses. That's amazing. Lu Ping bit his tongue. Doesn't that mean disciples of our academy are able to dominate Divine Firmament Mainland? You must be dreaming. Elder Zhong shook his head and smiled. This time round, the Sect Master only attacked because the difference between us was too great. If it was a fight between the same cultivation realm, the Sect Master would not care. Victory and death are determined by karma. The Sect Master would definitely not interfere forcefully. Oh, I see. Lu Ping was slightly disappointed. That's enough. Elder Zhong smiled. No matter what, we survived a calamity. Go back and rest first. Su Zimo, Scarlet Rainbow, Lu Ping, the 3 of you go back and prepare. About 3 days later, the Grand Elder will summon you guys to join the inner sect. Everyone agreed and dispersed. Su Zimo, follow me. Elder Zhong continued, now that you're at the top of the Earth ranking, you can browse through the cultivation techniques and secret skills freely in the sect's Earth-grade secret pavilion. Apart from taking away the secret skills and cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion, there are no restrictions at all for you. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. A large part of the reason why he spent so much effort to obtain the top of the Earth ranking was because of this reward. Actually, although the reward was precious for disciples of the Academy, it was nothing much. After all, this was an Earth-grade secret pavilion and the cultivation techniques and secret skills within were not considered top-tier. Furthermore, for heaven-grade immortal sects like Heaven and Earth Academy, there were countless cultivation techniques and secret skills in the secret pavilion. However, a person's time and energy were limited and it was impossible for them to cultivate too much. For ordinary cultivators, it was enough to choose a few cultivation techniques and secret skills suitable for them in the pavilion. However, Su Zimo's plan was to digest and absorb all the cultivation techniques and secret skills in Heaven and Earth Academy's Earth-grade secret pavilion. Naturally, the Green Lotus True Body could not do that. However, the Martial Dao Prime Body could. The Martial Dao Prime Body had the Martial Dao Furnace and did not need to cultivate at all. He merely had to smelt all the sutras in the secret pavilion to decipher the profoundness within. The Martial Dao Prime Body was still in seclusion deducing the cultivation dermic formulations of the Martial Dao. At that moment he needed to read a large number of cultivation techniques. Back then, the reason why Su Zimo could create the 9 transformations of the Martial Dao in Tianhuang mainland was because he had once cultivated the immortal, Buddhist, fiend and demon Daos and obtained the inheritance of many mighty figure experts. That was the reason why he took another path and established the Martial Dao. Right now, if he wanted to continue deducing the divine dermic formulations of the Martial Dao, the Prime Body would have to smelt cultivation techniques and secret skills continuously to seek experience and inspiration. The quality of the cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion might not be high. However, every cultivation technique created and passed down contained the endless wisdom of their predecessors. Furthermore, these were cultivation techniques and secret skills of Heaven and Earth Academy. Before long, Su Zimo followed Elder Zhong and arrived before the Earth-grade secret pavilion of Heaven and Earth Academy. In front of the secret pavilion, an old man with white hair and beard stood guard. He leaned casually against the door with a broom in his arms and closed his eyes to rest. There was no one else around. Even when Su Zimo and Elder Zhong approached, the old man did not open his eyes. Su Zimo could not tell the old man's cultivation. He could only sense that the old man did not have much lifespan left and was at the end of his road. When Elder Zhong saw the old man, he was extremely respectful and bowed. Old Xian, Su Zimo is the top of the Earth ranking this time round. Oh. Suddenly, the old man opened his eyes and a strange look flashed through them. He sized up Su Zimo for a long time before nodding. Not bad, not bad. The younger generation is promising indeed. The old man praised calmly. Go on in. The old man shifted slightly and closed his eyes to rest once more. Go on in. Elder Zhong patted Su Zimo on the shoulder. If the Grand Elder summons you, I'll inform you. You can browse inside for the next 3 days. Chapter 2269-2269 Sword Classic. 2269 Sword Classic. Su Zimo cupped his fists towards the old man beside the secret pavilion and entered after bowing. The fragrance of ancient books wafted over. After Su Zimo entered the secret pavilion, the door behind him closed on its own. The light in the secret pavilion was dim. However, Su Zimo's eyesight was extremely strong, having cultivated to this point as he scanned the place without any obstructions. In the secret pavilion, there were neat bookshelves that were roughly divided into cultivation techniques, secret skills, immortal arts, elixir pills, array formations, weapon refinement. Every single type of bookshelf was lined with various cultivation techniques. Some of them were in the form of ancient scrolls, some of them were bamboo scrolls, some of them only had a single beast hide and some of them were jade scrolls. Su Zimo first arrived at the cultivation technique section and casually picked up an ancient scroll and took a look. Destiny Dark Spirit Technique. The contents of the cultivation technique were not complicated. Su Zimo merely browsed through it briefly and understood most of it. He memorized the cultivation technique silently and told the Martial Dao Prime Body, who was far away in the fiend domain. There was no need for the Green Lotus true body to cultivate these cultivation techniques. To be precise, the cultivation techniques in the Earth-grade secret pavilion were not worth his time and energy to cultivate. None of the cultivation techniques here could compare to the taboo mystic classic, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. Perhaps he could find some secret skills that were helpful to him on the other bookshelves. For example, Su Zimo was prepared to cultivate the lifespan sacrifice art released by Yi Fei in the Nine Heavens. Before long, the contents of the Destiny Dark Spirit technique were revealed to the Martial Dao Prime Body. Su Zimo continued watching. White Feather Spirit Manual. Mirror Dermic Art. Heaven-Seeking Manual. Fiend Suppression Manual. Divine Dream Mystic Classic. The Green Lotus True Body memorized cultivation techniques one after another and told everything to the Martial Dao Prime Body. Unknowingly, a day had passed and Su Zimo had just browsed through more than 100 cultivation techniques. It was not even a fraction of the secret pavilion. Su Zimo rubbed his glabella gently to calm himself down. With enough time he could transfer all the cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion to the Martial Dao Prime Body slowly. This matter could not be rushed. He casually picked up an ancient piece of white paper. Sword Classic. There were 2 words written on the top of the white paper. However, the edge of the paper was damaged and was clearly torn apart. It was incomplete and was only the size of a palm. There seemed to be something else before the word Sword Classic. However, the white paper was torn beyond recognition and there was only half of the sutra on it. Su Zimo could not understand it at all. Su Zimo did not think too much about it and still wanted to memorize the incomplete Sword Sutra before imparting it to the Martial Dao Prime Body. However, something strange happened. After Su Zimo memorized it once, when he wanted to impart the words of the Sword Classic to the Martial Dao Prime Body, he suddenly realized that he could not remember a single word of the Sword Sutra that he had just memorized. His mind was completely blank. Su Zimo frowned slightly. His gaze swept past the Sword Classic and the few paragraphs of the Sword Sutra that he had memorized earlier on resurfaced in his mind. When he wanted to tell the words to the Martial Dao Prime Body, they vanished once more and the latter could not obtain anything. Strange. Su Zimo was puzzled. This time round he memorized the Sword Classic repeatedly to ensure that he remembered them clearly. He did not impart them to the Martial Dao Prime Body either. Instead, he closed his eyes and repeated it to strengthen his memories. However, not long after, the lines of the sutra he memorized vanished from his mind once more. This is... Su Zimo looked at the palm-sized ancient white paper in his hands and his heart skipped a beat. He exerted strength in both hands and tore it to both sides. Indeed, the ancient white paper was intact. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo exerted strength. Apart from the fact that he did not use his blood chi, he released almost all the power of his grade 11 Green Lotus true body. Even ordinary heaven-grade dermic treasures would not be able to withstand such immense power. However, the ancient white paper did not budge at all and there were no signs of damage. This was a treasure. What was the origin of a sutra recorded in such a treasure? Why couldn't he memorize that sutra? Right then something crossed Su Zimo's mind. He put down the ancient white paper in his hands first and chose to impart the contents of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra to the Martial Dao Prime Body. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra was a taboo mystic classic and its help to the Martial Dao Prime Body was self-evident. Most of the first half of the sutra was sent to the Martial Dao Prime Body smoothly. However, the Green Lotus True Body could not send the last half of the sutra. The situation encountered was extremely similar to his earlier experience. The sutra at the back was the sutra on the 4th tripod wall of the Hell Suppression tripod. The 4th tripod wall had just been repaired. Although Su Zimo had already memorized the sutras on it, he had yet to cultivate and comprehend them completely. In other words, if he did not comprehend the sutra of the taboo mystic classic completely, he would not be able to impart it to another person even if he memorized it perfectly. Furthermore, Su Zimo could clearly sense that although he had imparted most of the sutra of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra to the Martial Dao Prime Body, there were still many important things missing. Those were the Dao runes and intents etched on the Hell Suppression tripod. Although the Green Lotus True Body could impart the sutra to the Martial Dao Prime Body, he could not transmit the Dao runes and intents on the Hell Suppression tripod. That was something left behind by the Infinite Great Emperor. Those were the most precious legacies of the taboo mystic classic. At the same time, Su Zimo finally understood something. The stronger the cultivation technique, the harder it was to cultivate and pass it down. It was especially so for the Taboo Mystic Classic. The only way to cultivate it successfully was by personally viewing the original copy of the Taboo Mystic Classic. Furthermore, even if the first person cultivated it successfully, the Taboo Mystic Classic could not be imparted if the original copy was not passed down to others. The heaven and earth slaying sword arts that Su Zimo obtained had such characteristics as well. Back in Tianhuang mainland in the ancient era, someone obtained those two sword arts and cultivated them successfully. However, they were not passed down. Even the Sword Emperor only managed to inherit the full legacy after he created another sword cultivation technique through one of the sword arts. In that case, there was a high chance that the Sword Sutra on the incomplete white paper before him came from a Taboo Mystic Classic or some extremely superior cultivation technique or secret skill. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and a thought flashed through his mind. He looked at the ancient white paper in his hands and circulated a cultivation technique at the same time as the martial Dao prime body who was far away in the fiend domain. In a drift, the two true bodies suddenly established a mysterious connection. Their minds were connected and they were even clearer and sharper than before. Suddenly, in the Earth-grade secret pavilion of Heaven and Earth Academy, Su Zimo's clear eyes transformed and two strange purple flames appeared. Spirit Consonance Art, to see what the other saw. At that moment, the martial Dao prime body transmigrated through endless space through the Spirit Consonance Art and saw everything in the Earth-grade secret pavilion of Heaven and Earth Academy through the eyes of the Green Lotus true body. Chapter 2270 Inner Sect Pulpit. 2270 Inner Sect Pulpit. Su Zimo's eyes burned with two purple flames that landed on the ancient white paper in his hands. Under the gaze of those purple eyes, the words on the ancient white paper seemed to burn. Even the Dao runes and intents on the ancient white paper were fused into the martial Dao furnace by the martial Dao prime body through the eyes of the Green Lotus true body and comprehended continuously. It was impossible for him to cultivate this incomplete sword classic. As for the martial Dao prime body, he did not cultivate it either. He merely fused the Dao runes and intents of the incomplete cultivation technique as well as the endless secrets contained in the sutra into the martial Dao furnace and divined it. Another day passed before the martial Dao prime body fused the sutra Dao runes and intents of the incomplete sword classic into the martial Dao furnace. There were only a few hundred words in the sword classic. However, the martial Dao prime body spent an entire day. It was clear how precious the sword classic was. Unfortunately, there were too many parts missing from the sword classic and the remaining hundreds of words could not be connected. Even the martial Dao prime body could not figure out how to cultivate this incomplete sword classic. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and rested for a while before continuing to browse through the remaining cultivation techniques and secret skills in the pavilion. This time round, through the Spirit Consonance Art, it was equivalent to the martial Dao prime body reading the cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion. He fused the contents of the cultivation techniques into the martial Dao furnace and refined them at a much faster speed. Unknowingly, another day had passed. In that day, the martial Dao prime body refined 1,000 cultivation techniques in the secret pavilion. It would take less than a year for him to fuse all the cultivation techniques in this secret pavilion into the martial Dao furnace. Suddenly, a voice sounded in Su Zimo's ears. 3 days had passed and today was the day for Su Zimo, Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping to join the inner sect. Under Elder Zhong's lead, the three of them entered the inner courtyard. The so-called inner courtyard was actually a vast paradise. There was a clear barrier between the inner and outer courtyards. Upon entering the domain of the inner sect, one could clearly sense that the world had turned richer. The scenery in the inner courtyard was even more shocking than the outer courtyard. If the outer courtyard was already no longer like the mortal world, the inner courtyard was practically filled with paradise. The number of outer sect disciples of Heaven and Earth Academy ranged around tens of thousands. However, there were hundreds of thousands of inner sect disciples. That was because Earth Immortals who could join the Heaven and Earth Academy had to go through the Immortal Sect selection. Almost all of them were paragons and monster incarnates of the Earth Essence realm and could break through to the Heaven Essence realm and become Heaven Immortals. However, the time taken for every outer sect disciple to break through to the Heaven Immortal realm was different. For example, Su Zimo, Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping had already broken through to the Heaven Immortal realm in just 1,000 years after joining Heaven and Earth Academy. That was a terrifying speed. As for inner sect disciples, they had to advance to the perfected one realm if they wanted to become legacy disciples. It was relatively easy for grade 9 Earth Immortals to break through to the Heaven Immortal realm. However, it was extremely difficult for Heaven Immortals to break through and become perfected Immortals. Therefore, in Heaven and Earth Academy, there were more inner sect disciples than outer sect disciples. This also meant that the competition between fellow sect mates was even more intense. Elder Zhong brought Su Zimo and the other two to the inner sect to meet the Grand Elder of the Academy. The Grand Elder of the Academy praised the three of them for their performance at the 10,000-year meet and gave them a sect badge each. That was the badge of an inner sect disciple, and one could only enter the inner sect freely if they carried it with them. Under normal circumstances, there were still some tests required to join the inner sect. However, Su Zimo and the other two became famous in the battle of the 10,000-year meet and brought honor to Heaven and Earth Academy. This time round, the Grand Elder made an exception and took the three of them into the inner sect directly to become official inner sect disciples. The process of entering the inner sect became extremely simple. There was no apprenticeship ceremony in between. Su Zimo was curious and could not help but ask, "Elder Zhong, after joining Heaven and Earth Academy, nobody seemed to have to learn from any experts and everyone seems to be cultivating separately." Elder Zhong smiled. "Cultivating in the outer and inner sects is entirely up to you guys. There won't be any special masters to impart skills and guide you guys. Of course, outer and inner sect disciples won't be able to come into contact with the true core Dharmic Dao of Heaven and Earth Academy either. Only legacy disciples have the chance to acknowledge a master and cultivate the top-tier Dharmic Dao of the Academy." Su Zimo nodded. Elder Zhong smiled. "However, you guys don't have to be disappointed. It's not as though there's no one to guide you in your cultivation in the inner sect. Follow me." Elder Zhong said and headed towards the east of the inner sect. Su Zimo and the other two hurriedly flew through the air and followed. About 15 minutes later, Elder Zhong's speed gradually slowed down. Su Zimo looked over and saw a group of cultivators standing not far ahead with powerful auras. They were all Heaven Immortals and inner sect disciples. At a glance they were dense and black. There were at least tens of thousands of them. Why are there so many inner sect disciples gathered here? Lu Ping was shocked and secretly speechless. In the middle of the black crowd, a blank area appeared with a gigantic circular pulpit erected in the middle. From afar it looked like a round cushion. A figure sat on the round cushion with an extraordinary bearing. Every single move he made emitted a powerful aura and a rumbling might. The figure was saying something and everyone below was listening intently. "The inner sect pulpit is right ahead." Elder Zhong pointed to the conspicuous gigantic round cushion in the distance. "Every other year, a legacy disciple will come to the inner sect to impart his Dao and clarify doubts. This is the greatest opportunity for inner sect disciples. The legacy disciples have already come into contact and cultivated the top-tier cultivation techniques of Heaven and Earth Academy. Their cultivation realms have far surpassed Heaven Immortals as well. Often, a single sentence from a legacy disciple is equivalent to 10 years of bitter cultivation. It can enlighten one instantly." A look of yearning and admiration appeared in the eyes of Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping. Every legacy disciple was a perfected immortal. However, perfected immortals were way too far away from them. In the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, there were many Heaven Immortal experts in the 4 immortal sects and 3 immortal kingdoms. However, there were very few who could become perfected immortals in the end. Perfected immortal experts had a lifespan of 500,000 years. After so many years of accumulation, Heaven and Earth Academy only had a few hundred legacy disciples. It could be said that every legacy disciple was a pillar and core power of the 4 immortal sects and 3 immortal kingdoms. In Divine Firmament Mainland and even the entire heavenly world, one would be respected. You guys sure are lucky to be able to encounter a legacy disciple imparting the Tao within the year of your arrival. The person on the pulpit ahead is Senior Brother Jade Toad. Elder Zhong focused his gaze and said with a delighted expression, "Let's go, I'll bring you guys over. We can make use of the opportunity to learn from Senior Brother Jade Toad." Chapter 2271, 2271 Noisy. 2271 Noisy. Just as he was about to approach the cultivation ground at the front, Elder Zhong suddenly paused and descended slowly from midair, waving for Su Zimo and the other two to descend as well. You can't stand in the air when you come to the cultivation ground to learn. Everyone has to stand on the ground as a form of respect for the perfected immortals who are imparting the Tao. Elder Zhong explained. The four of them did not move much. However, at the front of the cultivation ground, a grade 9 heaven immortal expert seemed to have sensed something and turned around slowly. When he saw Su Zimo and the others, his eyes turned cold. At the same time, Su Zimo frowned slightly. He sensed a wave of hostility from the crowd at the front of the cultivation ground that vanished instantly. At that moment, Su Zimo had already descended on the ground. There was a sea of people in front of him and the origin of the hostility could not be seen. At the front of the cultivation ground. Qingyun, what's wrong? Yan Bingying, the number 1 fairy of the inner sect, sensed that the man beside her had a strange expression and asked softly out of curiosity. The man beside Yan Bingying was the number 1 of the inner sect, Fang Qingyun. I saw someone I know. Fang Qingyun said indifferently with a calm expression. Who is it? At the side Tang Ping asked. Su Zimo. Fang Qingyun replied. Him? Tang Peng's expression turned cold as hatred and killing intent flashed through his eyes. Before the 10,000-year meet, in order to please Sword Immortal Yu Hua, the three of them wanted to teach Yang Ruoxu a lesson because of Su Zimo. Furthermore, Su Zimo and Yang Ruoxu were both from the lower worlds and Yang Ruoxu took good care of him. Back then, Fang Qingyun and the other two suffered a loss as well. Not only did they fail to teach Yang Ruoxu a lesson, they even caused Pang Yu's death. Qingyun, I heard from others that Su Zimo also knows a divine power that can reduce one's lifespan. Do you think that in that battle back then? Yan Bingying had a confused expression and hesitated. Fang Qingyun said, Cultivators of the Pang clan sent me a message as well to ask about this matter. They have the same judgment. Back then that lad was only a grade 8 earth immortal. Could he have killed Pang Yu, a grade 9 heaven immortal? Tang Ping frowned in disbelief. Fang Qingyun said, no matter what, that matter started because of Su Zimo and he has a good relationship with Yang Ruoxu. We have to teach him a lesson. Senior brother Fang, what do you think we should do? Killing intent flashed through Tang Peng's eyes as he secretly made a beheading gesture and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Should I find an opportunity? Junior brother Tang, don't be reckless. Yan Bingying frowned. I heard that Su Zimo made a name for himself at the 10,000-year meet and brought glory to the academy. That's right. Just teach him a lesson. Fang Qingyun smiled gently. We just have to let him understand who calls the shots in the inner sect. If he's wise and stands on our side, we can give him a chance. He's the top of the earth ranking after all and can be considered a talent. It's a pity to cripple him directly. Do you have a way, Qingyun? Yan Bingying sent a voice transmission. Su Zimo's current identity is no longer the same as before. Previously he was only an outer sect disciple. Now that he has joined the inner sect, although his cultivation realm is far inferior to ours, he's still the top of the earth ranking. There's no need for us to step in. Fang Qingyun smiled indifferently and looked at the high and mighty figure on the round pulpit not far away. Senior brother Jade Toad. Yan Bingying's eyes lit up. That's right. Senior brother Jade Toad is a legacy disciple. All I have to do is inform senior brother Jade Toad about the relationship between Su Zimo and Yang Ruoxu and what happened in the outer sect. Naturally, he will step in to teach Su Zimo a lesson. There are 5 aspects to flourishing one's spirit. Energy takes the lead while the heart is the reliance of energy. One can only glorify the spirit when one has morals, and the method of nourishing the spirit comes from unity of the Tao. Every single orifice is a gateway for qi and all is regulated by the heart. Life is bestowed by the heavens and the union of the 3 essences will revert one's core to nature. The removal of illusions creates the true essence. Perfected immortal experts are one with heaven. Although Su Zimo and the others were standing outside the crowd, they could still hear the voice of perfected immortal Jade Toad from the pulpit at the front of the cultivation ground. His voice was gentle and his pronunciation was precise. Every single word spoken by perfected immortal Jade Toad was profound and memorable. Su Zimo surveyed his surroundings, still thinking about the momentary hostility earlier on, and was a little distracted. Elder Zhong, the disciples of the academy here seem to have high cultivation realms. Su Zimo took a rough glance. Most of the heaven immortals around the cultivation ground were above grade 5. There were almost no grade 1 heaven immortals like Su Zimo, Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping. Of course. Elder Zhong smiled. When disciples of perfected immortals impart their Dao, they usually impart the dermic Dao between heaven immortals and perfected immortals. It's the most helpful for high-level heaven immortals to know how to break through and what they have comprehended during the breakthrough. Su Zimo nodded. Right then, for some reason, perfected immortal Jade Toad's voice paused for a moment. After a moment of silence on the pulpit, perfected immortal Jade Toad continued imparting the Dao as usual. That momentary pause did not cause much of a reaction. However, Su Zimo realized that after a momentary pause, perfected immortal Jade Toad's gaze had drifted in their direction. This was the first time Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping had entered the inner sect, and they were both excited to be able to catch a legacy disciple imparting the Dao. It's such a rare opportunity for legacy disciples to impart the Dao. There are hundreds of thousands of inner sect disciples. Why are only half of them here? Princess Scarlet Rainbow asked softly. Elder Zhong explained, some inner sect disciples might be out traveling to complete sect missions, while others who are in seclusion cultivation will naturally not come out of seclusion rashly. Of course, every legacy disciple has their own insights and the Dao they impart are all different. It's definitely beneficial for us to listen more. That's right, true. Lu Ping nodded hurriedly and said excitedly, the few sentences that senior brother Jade Toad said earlier on were truly extremely mysterious. I've been pondering over them repeatedly and I've gained new insights. How noisy. Right then, a shout sounded from the cultivation ground like thunder. Initially, the thunder rumbled above the cultivation ground. However, it descended in the ears of Su Zimo and the other three instantly and exploded. Elder Zhong's expression changed slightly. He was a grade 9 heaven immortal and could still withstand the impact of the voice. However, Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping were only grade 1 heaven immortals. Their bodies swayed slightly and their ears buzzed. In fact, blood even seeped out of their ears. That single voice had already injured the two of them. Su Zimo managed to defend against it with his grade 11 Green Lotus true body. However, he frowned in discomfort. Chapter 2272 2272 Get Lost. 2272 Get Lost. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and looked over. On the raised round pulpit in the middle far away, perfected immortal Jade Toad had a furious expression and a burning gaze as he looked at the four of them with a dignified expression. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, countless gazes on the cultivation ground looked towards them. The gazes were mixed with anger, surprise, disdain and excitement. Instantly, Su Zimo and the other three endured unimaginable pressure. The attention of tens of thousands of heaven immortals from the inner sect of Heaven and Earth Academy landed on the four of them at the same time. The pressure was imaginable. Even Elder Zhong felt uncomfortable and blushed in embarrassment. Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping had just joined the inner sect and were only grade 1 heaven immortals. They felt even more suffocated. Su Zimo was expressionless. He had experienced way more dangerous situations than this. Naturally, the pressure did not affect him much. Senior brother Jade Toad. Elder Zhong bowed hurriedly with an apologetic expression. The three of them are Su Zimo, Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping. They have done great merits for the Academy at this 10,000-year meet. The three of them have just joined the inner sect and don't know much about the rules. If they have offended you, senior brother Jade Toad, please calm down and forgive them. Elder Zhong recounted the background of Su Zimo and the other two while apologizing profusely. He was extremely considerate and polite. Oh. Perfected immortal Jade Toad's expression was still cold as ice as he asked instead, so, those who achieve great merits for the Academy at the 10,000-year meet are allowed to disregard etiquette and rules. Wow. Elder Zhong was speechless. That was not what he meant at all. He did not expect perfected immortal Jade Toad to hold on to this matter. I'm here to impart the Dao and I welcome all fellow juniors to listen in. However, the few of you are chattering incessantly below and making a ruckus. You're way too brazen and don't know how to control yourselves. Perfected immortal Jade Toad's tone turned colder. You think you can be arrogant just because you've done great merits at the 10,000-year meet? This is the inner sect, not your outer sect. A grade 6 heaven immortal sneered. So, he's the top of the earth ranking. It's no wonder why he's so arrogant and conceited. Another voice sounded from the crowd. Su Zimo found it familiar. However, the crowd was noisy and he could not recall who it was right away. So what if he's at the top of the earth ranking? Even after joining the inner sect, he's only a grade 1 heaven immortal. In the inner sect, he's everyone's junior brother. That's right, even the top of the earth ranking has to bow obediently and address us as senior brothers when he sees us. A commotion broke out in the crowd. Given perfected immortal Jade Toad's status in Heaven and Earth Academy, many inner sect disciples would naturally choose to stand on his side. Even if some Heaven immortals felt that this matter was a little blown out of proportions, they chose to remain silent. Under the lead of Fang Qingyun and the others, many cultivators began to criticize Su Zimo loudly. Sorry. Lu Ping's face was flushed red and blood was still flowing from his ears. With a guilty expression, he bowed repeatedly and apologized, sweating profusely. Princess Scarlet Rainbow was also ashamed as she lowered her head, wishing that she could find a hole to hide in. It was still all right for Elder Zhong. After all, he had cultivated in the inner sect for many years and many inner sect disciples were familiar with him. As such, there were not many attacks. However, Su Zimo and the other two had only just joined the inner sect. Right now, they were almost universally condemned. Su Zimo frowned slightly in frustration. He felt that something was amiss. While the four of them conversed below, their voices were not loud and could not be considered as a clamor, nor was it to the extent of chattering endlessly. The cultivation ground was extremely spacious and could accommodate tens of thousands of people. They were at the back of the cultivation ground and nobody would notice the four of them unless they listened carefully. Furthermore, the four of them were not the only ones conversing in the cultivation ground. Many cultivators were discussing softly and exchanging their insights. Wasn't the reaction of senior brother Jade Toad a little overboard if he was enraged just because the few of them were conversing? However, Su Zimo had just joined the inner sect and did not know anything about it. He did not know the rules of the cultivation ground either. There was no way he could stand out and fight against a legacy disciple of the academy and a perfected immortal just because of his intuition. Perfected immortal Jade Toad said slowly, "The cultivation ground does not welcome people like you who have no respect for the academy's seniors and those who are imparting the Tao." Pausing for a moment, he hollered coldly, "Get lost." When he heard that, Su Zimo suddenly felt indignant. His expression turned cold and his aura changed drastically. Sensing the change in Su Zimo, Elder Zhong was shocked and grabbed his arm hurriedly. In a flash, he blocked in front of Su Zimo. "Zimo, don't be reckless." Elder Zhong hurriedly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. In the Yin-Yang Palace, he had witnessed Su Zimo's methods and temperament. Su Zimo was truly decisive to kill and in a fit of anger, he could spill blood everywhere. But now he was facing perfected immortal Jade Toad, a legacy disciple of the academy. This was somebody he mustn't go against. Forget it. Elder Zhong sent a voice transmission. "We were in the wrong first after all. Let's go." Although conversing in the cultivation ground was not a big deal, they were disadvantaged in terms of logic as well. If Su Zimo were to have a direct conflict with a legacy disciple, it would be difficult for him to advance in the inner sect in the future. Actually, Elder Zhong knew very well that even if they left now, Su Zimo and the other two would not have a good time in the inner sect from now on. The three of them had just joined the inner sect, but they were scolded by a legacy disciple in front of tens of thousands of inner sect disciples. It was a complete disgrace. No matter who came to impart the Tao in the future, as long as the three of them entered the cultivation ground, they would attract strange gazes and ridicule from others. Sigh. Elder Zhong sighed internally. He was puzzled as to why senior brother Jade Toad would suddenly fly into a rage and target Su Zimo and the other two. It was almost as though he was making things difficult for them. It made no sense because perfected immortal Jade Toad did not know Su Zimo and the other two at all. "Let's go. It's all my fault." Lu Ping tugged at the corner of Su Zimo's clothes as well and said in self-blame, looking aggrieved and ashamed. "Get lost from the cultivation ground. Don't affect our learning. You're not welcome in the cultivation ground." A series of shouts sounded once more. Princess Scarlet Rainbow pursed her lips tightly and lowered her head in silence. She had never suffered such humiliation in the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom. However, this was Heaven and Earth Academy. She was a princess in the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom, but here, she was an ordinary inner sect disciple. She had to endure all the grievances no matter what they were. Su Zimo remained silent and closed his eyes, calming himself down. His initially clenched fists gradually relaxed as well. He's a frog in the well from the lower worlds after all and doesn't know any etiquette. Perfected immortal Jade Toad sneered. Why Why aren't you scramming yet, lowlife? Are you indignant? Under the persuasion of Elder Zhong and the others, Su Zimo was initially about to leave. However, he suddenly stopped in his tracks when he heard that. Under normal circumstances, as a legacy disciple, it was impossible for perfected immortal Jade Toad to know him. From the reaction of perfected immortal Jade Toad, it was clear that he knew his identity and background. At the same time, Su Zimo finally recalled who the first few mocking voices in the crowd were: Tang Peng. The reason for this matter gradually became clearer. If they were the ones who made the mistake first and were chased out of the cultivation ground, it would be understandable. However, if someone targeted him intentionally, Su Zimo would definitely not tolerate it. Chapter 2273-2273 Dao Heart Stairs. 2273 Dao Heart Stairs. Su Zimo turned around slowly and looked in the direction of perfected immortal Jade Toad. A mocking look flashed through his eyes as he asked loudly, "I've just joined the inner sect and have never met you before, senior brother Jade Toad. How did you know that I'm from the lower worlds?" Although Su Zimo had no intention of leaving, he was not reckless enough to confront or fight perfected immortal Jade Toad directly. He was only a grade 1 heaven immortal and could be killed by a single finger of a perfected immortal. There were rules in Heaven and Earth Academy. Even perfected immortal disciples could not attack their fellow sect mates casually after a casual conversation or verbal conflict at the cultivation ground. If Su Zimo were to attack rashly and give perfected immortal Jade Toad a chance to retaliate, he would truly have a death wish. Perfected immortal Jade Toad knew that his statement earlier on revealed an opening, but he was not bothered. This was merely a grade 1 heaven immortal who had just joined the inner sect. Even if he was the top of the earth ranking, perfected immortal Jade Toad did not take him seriously. "I'm asking you if you're indignant." Perfected immortal Jade Toad did not reply to Su Zimo's question at all. He merely glared at Su Zimo with a burning gaze and asked word by word. Every single word caused the void to tremble and a might surged towards Su Zimo like a tsunami. Everyone could tell that perfected immortal Jade Toad was truly enraged by Su Zimo's rebuttal. At that moment, Su Zimo was not only enduring the pressure of the tens of thousands of heaven immortals on the cultivation ground, but also the wrath of perfected immortal Jade Toad. "Zimo, let's just go," Elder Zhong whispered with a pale face. Although he was an inner sect elder, he had to bow down in front of legacy disciples and did not dare to go against them. "Yes, I'm indignant." Su Zimo had a fearless expression as he met perfected immortal Jade Toad's gaze and asked indifferently, "Senior brother Jade Toad, are you going to attack and suppress me?" Private fights were not allowed in Heaven and Earth Academy. No matter who it was, they would have to fight on the Sword Discourse arena. As a legacy disciple, if perfected immortal Jade Toad were to attack Su Zimo on the Sword Discourse arena, he would be the one embarrassed instead. It was like an adult taking the initiative to challenge a 3-year-old child. If he were to announce it smugly in public, it would only attract ridicule from others. Su Zimo was certain that perfected immortal Jade Toad could not afford to lose face like this. Indeed, perfected immortal Jade Toad suddenly laughed and retracted his terrifying might. "My cultivation realm is far superior to yours. If I attack you, you'll be even more indignant and others will say that I'm bullying the weak." What I mentioned earlier on involved the Dao Heart. The strength of one's Dao Heart has nothing to do with their cultivation realm. Since you're indignant, follow me to the Dao Heart Stairs. Dao Heart Stairs. Su Zimo frowned slightly. He had just joined the inner sect and had not heard of the Dao Heart Stairs. When Elder Zhong saw Su Zimo's puzzled expression, he explained softly, "The Dao Heart Stairs is an extremely special cultivation ground in the academy and can only be used to cleanse one's Dao Heart. There are a total of 9 steps to the Dao Heart Stairs. Every single stone step was left behind by the strongest person in the history of the academy with a strong Dao Heart. The strong Dao Hearts caused the world to tremble, resonating across the great Dao so that they could be formed with supreme wills." Su Zimo asked, "Does that mean that the 9 stone steps are not corporeal?" "That's right," Elder Zhong said, "although they are incorporeal, every single step truly exists. Everyone who steps onto the Dao Heart Stairs has to endure the supreme will left behind by the owner of the stone step. If their Dao Hearts can't withstand it, they will fall from above. One can only ascend to the second stone step after withstanding the impact of the first stone step's Dao Heart. Every year, cultivators will head there to baptize and temper their Dao hearts, attempting to ascend higher stone steps. Su Zimo understood. In other words, the stronger one's Dao heart was, the higher they would climb the Dao heart stairs. The strength of one's Dao heart had nothing to do with their cultivation realm. It depended on whether their Dao heart was resolute and how much temptation they could withstand. Birth, aging, illness and death, the 7 emotions and 6 desires, each of them was a form of tempering for one's Dao heart. No matter how high one's cultivation realm was, it was difficult for them to break free from those attachments. Su Zimo asked again, how many people in Heaven and Earth Academy can reach the 9th step? How many people? Elder Zhong was shocked. Ha 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 ha. Indeed, those who ascended from the lower worlds know nothing. They're just frogs in a well. The ignorant are truly fearless. Many Heaven Immortals burst into laughter when they heard Su Zimo's question. In the crowd, Yan Bingying could not help but laugh. Senior brother Qingyun, Su Zimo is bound to lose. He won't just merely lose. Fang Qingyun shook his head gently. If his Dao heart collapses and he can't cultivate in the future, that can console junior brother Pang Yu's spirit in heaven. How should we achieve that? Tang Ping asked. Fang Qingyun smiled indifferently. That will depend on senior brother Jade Toad's capabilities. Elder Zhong pulled up his sleeves and wiped his sweat. Every level of the Dao heart staircase is not an ordinary stone step. It's not that easy. From what I know, apart from the Sect master, no one in the academy can ascend to the 9th step. It's already not bad if you can reach the 2nd step, let alone the 9th. Most disciples of the academy, legacy disciples included, have difficulty surpassing the 3rd step. At that point, Su Zimo understood why the surrounding Heaven Immortals laughed. Perfected Immortal Jade Toad's suggestion was rather fair. However, since he dared to make this suggestion, he definitely had immense confidence in himself. However, Su Zimo had never ascended the Dao heart stairs before and had no experience. Naturally, he could not compare to Perfected Immortal Jade Toad in this aspect. Su Zimo, do you dare? A mocking look appeared on Perfected Immortal Jade Toad's face. If you don't dare, apologize to me respectfully here and get lost. Don't let me see you again. Cut the crap. Lead the way. Su Zimo replied indifferently. Elder Zhong was about to stop him when it was too late. He sighed internally and pondered for a moment before sending a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Su Zimo, that's good as well. There's no harm in you agreeing to it. However, don't force yourself on the Dao heart stairs. If you can't hold on, retreat immediately and you won't be injured. Su Zimo, you're way too sharp. Elder Zhong lamented. If you want to survive in the upper world, there are times when you have to endure. Just like earlier on, we were scolded and embarrassed. It's nothing much and we didn't lose anything. We can just leave directly. There's no need to act rashly. Elder, you're right. Su Zimo did not refute and merely smiled. We merely seek different Daos. There were countless cultivators and all of them sought different Daos. Perhaps the Dao of some people was to restrain themselves and be careful. If they were told to scram, they would. If they were told to kneel, they would. There was nothing wrong or superior about the Dao that these people sought. However, those were not the Daos of Su Zimo or Desolate Marshal. The moment Su Zimo entered the cultivation world, he wanted to fight against the heavens, exact revenge and repay gratitude as he pleased. It was better to live a spectacular life than to live an ignoble existence. What was the point of seeking longevity if he merely wanted to lead an ignoble life? If not for his Dao heart and persistence, he would not have been able to reach this point. Without such a Dao heart, he would not have dared to accept the challenge and ascend the Dao heart stairs with Perfected Immortal Jade Toad. Chapter 2274, 2274 You're not worthy. 2274 You're not worthy. A faint smile appeared on Perfected Immortal Jade Toad's lips as he walked towards the Dao heart stairs. Dealing with a Grade 1 Heaven Immortal who had just joined the inner sect was nothing much for him. Although he was a legacy disciple, he was only ranked last among the hundreds of disciples in the legacy ground and was nothing much. However, it was different for Sword Immortal Yuhua. In the legacy ground, Sword Immortal Yuhua was one of the top 3 existences. If he could make use of this opportunity to get closer to Sword Immortal Yuhua and obtain some guidance, it would be quite an opportunity. In Heaven and Earth Academy, be it the inner sect, outer sect or legacy ground, groups of various sizes would naturally develop. If one was alone and did not have any backing, it would be difficult for them to establish themselves in the academy. Actually, Heaven and Earth Academy turned a blind eye to fights between disciples of factions. In fact, it was a form of silent acknowledgement. As long as they did not violate the sect rules and sparred, the benefits outweighed the disadvantages. The path of cultivation was filled with danger and bloodshed. If one did not have the experience of fighting and killing in the academy, they would not be able to adapt to the cruel world outside. Initially, perfected immortal Jade Toad merely wanted to chase Suzimo out and embarrass him. However, Suzimo's rebuttal later on enraged him. A grade 1 heaven immortal who had just joined the inner sect and had ascended from the lower worlds dared to go against him. So what if he was at the top of the earth ranking? Perfected immortal Jade Toad had already made up his mind and intended to make use of the Dao Heart Stairs to teach Suzimo an unforgettable lesson. The Dao Heart Stairs were not dangerous to begin with. However, if cultivators that ascended the Dao Heart Stairs could not withstand the impact of the Dao Hearts left behind by many experts before and insisted on not retreating, their Dao Hearts would collapse and they would enter Qi deviation. At best, it would be difficult for their cultivations to advance. At worst, their cultivations might even dissipate. Tens of thousands of heaven immortal experts walked in the direction of the Dao Heart Stairs in a grand manner, forming an extremely spectacular scene in the inner sect. What's going on? Some inner sect disciples who did not understand went forward to ask. Someone laughed. A grade 1 heaven immortal who had just joined the inner sect created trouble at the cultivation ground and provoked senior brother Jade Toad. He even wants to compete against senior brother Jade Toad on the Dao Heart Stairs. Who is he? Is he crazy? He's just someone from the lower worlds who doesn't know any etiquette. No wonder. From the word of mouth of these disciples, they had long deviated from the truth. Or rather, the truth was not important to the bystanders, they only wanted to know one thing. A grade 1 heaven immortal actually dared to challenge a legacy disciple. The crowd surged. Princess Scarlet Rainbow, who was initially lively and active, quietened down as well and looked at Suzimo with worried eyes. Lu Ping gripped his hands tightly with an uneasy expression. He looked at the strange gazes coming from time to time and felt uneasy when he heard the mocking laughter not far away. Suzimo followed the crowd with a calm expression. Before long, many cultivators crossed a lush forest and arrived at an empty field. Although the venue was rather spacious, it still seemed slightly crowded with tens of thousands of cultivators. After all, the Dao Heart Stairs was a place where one's Dao Heart was baptized and refined. It was rare for so many inner sect disciples to appear at the same time. In the middle of the venue was a sacrificial platform. Looking down, one could see extremely mysterious runes etched on the sacrificial platform. They were dense and seemed to be some sort of array formation restriction. In the middle of the altar, a stone staircase rose from the ground with a total of 9 levels. Every single stone step was neither illusory nor corporeal. There was a strange glow circulating on them and they emitted a tremendous energy fluctuation. Standing in front of the sacrificial platform, everyone did not seem to be facing the Dao Heart Stairs. Instead, they were facing 9 eternal supreme experts that stood between the world and looked down at them. An invisible pressure enveloped the world. When Elder Zhong saw that Suzimo had made up his mind, he knew that he could not persuade Suzimo further and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Suzimo, there are a total of 9 levels to the Dao Heart Stairs. The first stone step was formed by the former immortal King Tianming of the Academy and it's known as the Longevity Step. Of the 9 stone steps, the first stone step is relatively easier because most cultivators seek the Dao of Longevity. Once you step onto the Longevity Step, a resonance will be easily created if your Dao Heart is similar. The second stone step is called the Carefree Step and was formed by immortal King Sui Xing of the Academy. What this immortal king seeks is freedom and being carefree so that he can do what he wants. The impact of the Carefree Step on a cultivator's Dao Heart won't be too great. If you can't withstand it, you can just retreat. The third stone step is the Killing Step. At that point, a look of trepidation flashed through Elder Zhong's eyes. Suzimo, no matter what, don't step foot on this stone step. The Killing Step has the most impact on a cultivator's Dao Heart. If their Dao Heart is unstable, they will fall into the desire to kill and lose themselves, resulting in Qi deviation. In the Academy, be it inner sect or legacy disciples, most cultivators won't be able to cross the killing step. I've never come into contact with the later steps. However, I heard that there's the nature step and the fearless step. Oh, right? Elder Zhong seemed to have thought of something. The 9th stone step was condensed by our sect master's Dao heart. However, no one from the academy has ever stepped foot on it. Su Zimo, are you afraid? Right then an ear-piercing and mocking voice sounded, causing many cultivators to burst into laughter. When perfected immortal Jade Toad saw that Su Zimo was silent, he thought that the latter was fearful and provoked him. Su Zimo, if you're afraid, I'll compete with you. Right then another voice sounded. Su Zimo glanced sideways and saw many inner sect disciples surrounding Fang Qingyun, Yan Bingying and Tang Peng. The person who spoke was Tang Peng. He was worried that Su Zimo would retreat at the last minute out of fear of the reputation of legacy disciples. That was the reason why he jumped out eagerly. Tang Peng smiled. Su Zimo, we're both inner sect disciples. If I ascend the Dao Heart Stairs with you, it's not considered bullying. You? Su Zimo looked askance at Tang Peng before retracting his gaze and saying indifferently, you're not worthy. Tang Peng was stunned for a moment before he was enraged. Insolent. How arrogant. Before Tang Peng could speak, some inner sect disciples jumped out and shouted. Tang Peng's gaze was sharp like an eagle and shone with a cold glint. He glared at Su Zimo murderously and said coldly, all right, let's see how many levels you can clear on the Dao Heart Stairs. Su Zimo could not be bothered with him and walked towards the Dao Heart Stairs. Perfected immortal Jade Toad was already standing there. Zimo, watch out. Princess Scarlet Rainbow reminded softly with a worried expression. Lu Ping was tense as well, seemingly more nervous than if he was the one ascending the Dao Heart Stairs personally. Elder Zhong sent another voice transmission. Su Zimo, you must remember not to force yourself. If you feel that something is amiss, retreat from above immediately. Su Zimo waved with his back facing the three of them and arrived at the sacrificial platform before long, standing shoulder to shoulder with perfected immortal Jade Toad. Right then Tang Peng suddenly advanced and came to Su Zimo's left, sandwiching Su Zimo in the middle with perfected immortal Jade Toad. Chapter 2275 Tempering the Dao Heart. 2275 Tempering the Dao Heart. When Princess Scarlet Rainbow saw that, she asked softly worriedly, Elder Zhong, will the two of them attack Zimo when they ascend the Dao Heart Stairs? No, cultivators are not allowed to fight on the Dao Heart Stairs. Elder Zhong shook his head gently. Pausing for a moment, his expression changed slightly as though he recalled something. What's going on? Princess Scarlet Rainbow asked hurriedly when she saw Elder Zhong's strange expression. Elder Zhong said, fighting is not allowed on the Dao Heart Stairs but speaking is not forbidden. If Tang Peng or senior brother Jade Toad were to provoke Su Zimo with words while enduring the Dao Heart trial, there might be unpredictable consequences as well. Verbal attacks were often even more terrifying and dangerous. That was the reason why there were divine powers and secret skills such as serrated tongue spear and pen of mouth. Cultivators were extremely cautious in fights against top experts and most of the time, they would test one another with words to find openings. In the Dao Heart trial, if Su Zimo was affected by Tang Peng or perfected immortal Jade Toad's words and revealed an opening in his mind, there was a high chance that he would lose his Dao Heart and collapse. If Su Zimo had ascended the Dao Heart Stairs before and had some experience, he might be able to deal with it. But now that Su Zimo was ascending the Dao Heart Stairs for the first time to welcome the Dao Heart trial, the consequences would be unpredictable if anyone were to interrupt him with verbal attacks. At that thought, Elder Zhong was about to send a voice transmission reminder when Su Zimo and the other two suddenly moved. Almost at the same time, they ascended to the first step of the Dao Heart Stairs. Mysterious lights rose from the sacrificial platform and formed a sealed barrier around it, isolating all sound from the outside world. I was a step too late. Elder Zhong sighed and could only pray internally, I hope that Su Zimo can tide through this calamity and the heavens will bless him. First stone step of the Dao Heart Stairs. When Su Zimo stepped foot on the stone step, he suddenly felt a powerful will pushing forward bravely on the path of cultivation. Immortals caress my head and bind my hair to grant me immortality. The mortal world is filled with mutual deception, bloodshed, fights and karma. I only seek the Tao of longevity. Su Zimo seemed to have followed in the footsteps of his predecessors and traveled through the endless sands of time to temper his Tao heart. The Tao of longevity was also what most cultivators sought. The path of cultivation was arduous and one could only reach the other end by upholding their Tao heart and not being disturbed by external objects or mental demons. Once his Tao heart wavered, his conviction would collapse as well. At that time, mental demons would be born and his personality would change drastically. His cultivation might dissipate within a short period of time. Su Zimo stood on the first stone step of the Tao heart stairs and endured the will of longevity to temper his Tao heart and make it purer and firmer. The power on the Tao heart staircase was not targeted at the body or essence spirit, but the Tao heart. Only if one's Tao heart was strong enough could they not be disturbed by the will of longevity. For example, a cultivator might seek the Tao of the sword. The Tao of the sword advocated for one to advance courageously. They would rather break than bend. However, under the impact of the longevity will, if one's Tao heart was not firm enough, they would be confused and even doubt themselves. Why should they break rather than bend? Why would they want to commit to a point where they would perish with the other party? Only by living could there be hope and longevity. Once such a doubt was formed, one's Tao heart would waver. Perfected immortal Jade Toad and Tang Peng had ascended the Tao heart stairs countless times and were most familiar with the will of longevity on the first stone step. It was relatively easier for the two of them to deal with it. Su Zimo, what is the Tao you seek? A cold glint flashed through Tang Peng's eyes as he suddenly asked. Although Su Zimo heard Tang Peng's voice, he was immersed in the tempering of his Tao heart and could not be bothered with anything else. When Tang Peng saw that Su Zimo did not reply, he continued, no matter what your Tao is, you should at least learn to judge the situation first. That way you can survive and have a shot at longevity. Su Zimo remained expressionless and did not reply. During this period of time, Tang Peng tried his best to provoke Su Zimo with words, but the latter turned a deaf ear. Later on, because he was constantly distracted talking, Tang Peng's Tao heart was almost broken by the will of longevity. He was so scared that he hurriedly maintained his Tao heart and guarded his spirit platform. Perfected immortal Jade Toad did not speak. Even if his Tao heart was destroyed on the first stone step, he would not suffer much damage. If Su Zimo could continue climbing and reach the third stone step, that would be the best opportunity for him to strike. Senior brother Qingyun, how long do you think Su Zimo can last? Yan Bingying asked. A heaven immortal at the side pouted his lips and said in disdain, it's already not bad if he can last for 15 minutes on the Tao heart stairs given that it's his first time. Fang Qingyun shook his head gently. This person's Tao heart is firm and it won't be a problem for him to pass the first stone step. We'll just have to see if he'll stop at the second or third stone step. Right then, perfected immortal Jade Toad moved and suddenly strode onto the second stone step. So fast. As expected of a legacy disciple. He passed the test of the longevity step in such a short period of time. The crowd exclaimed. The moment perfected immortal Jade Toad stepped onto the second stone step, he turned around and looked at Su Zimo with a fake smile. I'll wait for you at the front. Although those words seemed simple, they were filled with provocation and could even give Su Zimo immense pressure. However, Su Zimo was unmoved and had a calm expression, still enduring the Tao heart trial of the longevity step. The Tao heart trial on the stone steps was new to him. The reason why he took a long time was not because his Tao heart was not strong enough. It was because he was too unfamiliar with the Tao heart trial and required a process of adaptation. In the blink of an eye, 15 minutes passed. Tang Peng's eyes shone brightly as he suddenly took a step forward and ascended the second stone step. Ha 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 ha. The moment he stepped onto the second stone step, Tang Peng turned to look at Su Zimo and laughed. You're too slow. If you can't hold on. Before Tang Peng could finish, Su Zimo moved as well and ascended the second stone step without falling behind him. Tang Peng's voice stopped abruptly. He was a grade 9 heaven immortal and had cultivated in Heaven and Earth Academy for many years. He had ascended the Tao heart stairs hundreds of times. However, Su Zimo had just joined the inner sect and was only a grade 1 heaven immortal. Furthermore, this was someone from the lower worlds. Yet this person was comparable to him? At that thought, the rage, jealousy, doubt and indignance in Tang Peng's heart surged uncontrollably. What rights does this lowlife have? The two of us ascended the second stone step at almost the same time. What would others think of me? Am I inferior to a lowlife who is merely a grade 1 heaven immortal? All sorts of thoughts surged into Tang Peng's mind. His head was about to explode and his eyes were bloodshot. His expression was dark and his essence chi was in a mess. This is bad. Fang Qingyun frowned. Tang Ping lost his Dao heart. Before his sentence was finished, Tang Peng exclaimed and fell stiffly from the Dao heart stairs, landing on the sacrificial platform in an extremely sorry state. Tang Peng's face was pale as he panted heavily. His body trembled and his pupils dilated, as though he was extremely shocked. Chapter 2276-2276 Heart of the Martial Dao. 2276 Heart of the Martial Dao. On the second stone step, the Dao heart will of another immortal king was condensed. Initially, Tang Peng's Dao heart was only at the second stone step as well. Now that he had ascended the second stone step, he did not stabilize his mind and defend his Dao heart. Instead, he wanted to mock Su Zimo, and his Dao heart revealed an opening that was instantly broken by the powerful will of the stone step. This was the carefree step, and the impact on a cultivator's Dao heart was not strong. Even so, a crack appeared in Tang Peng's Dao heart. He would have to recuperate in seclusion for a period of time after returning before he could recover. Tang Peng has lost a lot of face this time round. He took the initiative to provoke them but ended up losing. He must have been too careless. Su Zimo does have some tricks up his sleeves. He's able to ascend to the second stone step successfully just by ascending the Dao heart stairs for the first time. The surrounding inner sect disciples whispered. When Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping saw that Su Zimo was fine, their expressions softened as well. Fang Qingyun raised his head slightly. Two inner sect disciples behind him understood and hurried forward to help Tang Ping down. Even though he had already left the Dao heart stairs, Tang Ping did not seem to have snapped out of his stupor. His body trembled continuously and his gaze was hollow, as though he did not recognize anyone. The Dao heart will of the second stone step had a huge impact on him. Even though he had already fallen off the Dao heart stairs after he failed to guard his Dao heart, he could not break free from it mentally yet. Fang Qingyun closed two fingers and a spot of spirit light condensed on his fingertip, tapping Tang Peng's glabella gently. Tang Peng's expression froze and he fainted. Fang Qingyun said indifferently, "Let him sleep. He'll regain consciousness after waking up." On the Dao heart stairs, Su Zimo and perfected immortal Jade Toad stood side by side once more. "Not bad." Perfected immortal Jade Toad chuckled and said leisurely, "To think that you would be able to clear the first stone step's Dao heart trial so quickly." On the second stone step, perfected immortal Jade Toad had a relaxed expression. While enduring the Dao heart trial, he could also divert his attention to speak. Su Zimo remained silent. "Actually, there's nothing much to the carefree step. The third stone step will be considered the true Dao heart trial." Perfected immortal Jade Toad continued. Su Zimo remained silent. The reason why perfected immortal Jade Toad spoke was because he wanted Su Zimo to reply. Once he replied, he would definitely be distracted no matter what he replied. However, Su Zimo did not fall for it and perfected immortal Jade Toad did not probe further. He remained silent and focused on resisting the Dao heart trial on the second stone step. Good evil? Benevolence, heretical? I don't care at all. As long as I'm carefree, be it heaven and earth, rules, the 7 emotions or the 6 desires, nothing can restrain me. Under the influence of this Dao heart, Su Zimo seemed to have returned to Tianhuang mainland, to the time when he had just stepped onto the path of cultivation and only sought to be carefree. By maintaining a carefree Dao heart, he could live freely without restraints. He had no burdens and could do as he pleased. Su Zimo was gradually lost in this state and could not extricate himself. However, when he saw countless citizens of Yen country destroyed and homeless and Su Hong die with his own eyes, a strong emotion still burst forth from his heart. It was as though something had broken through the fog and broken free from all the shackles of being carefree from his body. I want to establish a Dao. Standing on the second stone step, Su Zimo suddenly spoke. His voice was so soft that almost no one could hear him. However, those words exploded in his mind like thunder. Those were the words that he said personally back then. From then on, he embarked on an extremely difficult Dao with an uncertain future. There was no one who could help him or give him experience on this Dao. He could only advance alone. When Su Zimo woke up, the Dao of carefreeness could no longer affect his Dao heart. That was the heart of the martial Dao. It was to advance courageously without any fear. Right then, Perfected Immortal Jade Toad stepped onto the third stone step and turned to look at Su Zimo with a faint smile. "I'll wait for you at the front." Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo had already stepped onto the third stone step. A commotion broke out in the surrounding crowd. More than half of the tens of thousands of inner sect disciples present could not reach the third stone step. But now, this grade 1 heaven immortal who had just joined the inner sect had already surpassed most of them. This is bad. However, Elder Zhong had a grim expression and said worriedly, "The third stone step is the killing step and is the most dangerous. Once one's Dao heart is lost, there's a high chance that they will enter Qi deviation and their cultivation will be destroyed." When Perfected Immortal Jade Toad saw Su Zimo following closely behind and ascending the third stone step as well, the smile on his face disappeared and his expression gradually darkened. This time round he did not say anything more to provoke Su Zimo. That was because on the third stone step, even he had to focus his attention and manage his Qi to defend against the impact of the killing Dao heart. Although he could ascend the third stone step, he had never crossed it. Kill. 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 The Tao of killing lies in one's heart. Any attachments, obstacles, obstructions and karma only have the word kill. The only way to destroy everything and all living beings is to kill and carve out a bloodied great Tao so that there will be no more obstacles ahead. The moment he stepped onto the third stone step, Su Zimo felt a chilling killing intent that was so thick that it almost materialized and descended. In the Tao of killing, no matter what one did, right or wrong, there was only a single word, kill. Killing intent enveloped him and attacked his heart. If one's Dao heart was not strong, resolute or pure, there was a high chance that they would sink completely into the killing intent and lose their rationality, resulting in Qi deviation. Su Zimo defended his Dao heart and endured the killing intent on the third stone step continuously. The will to kill was far more terrifying and dangerous than the longevity and carefree wills from before, and the impact was even stronger. However, no matter how strong this killing intent was, it could not shake Su Zimo's heart of the martial Tao. The two true bodies were telepathic. The Green Lotus true body's Dao heart was not the only one on trial on the Dao heart staircase. It was also the Dao heart of the martial Dao prime body. Although the Green Lotus true body was the one stepping on the Dao heart stairs physically, the martial Dao prime body that was in the fiend domain was also enduring the tempering and baptism of his Dao heart. No matter how strong the killing intent was, it could not defeat the boldness of the heart of the martial Dao. I want to establish a Tao. I want to break free the shackles of fate that bind every single living being in the world. I'm going to change the fate of all living beings. I'm going to allow all lives in this world the ability to cultivate and become immortals. The Tao of killing could destroy everything, but it could not destroy Su Zimo's heart of the martial Tao that was the great Tao of true martial arts. Bang! Su Zimo let out a long howl and his gaze was like lightning. He advanced against the tide and suddenly strode onto the fourth stone step. The cultivators were shocked and in an uproar. Perfected Immortal Jade Toad on the third stone step was still trying his best to defend against the impact of the killing intent and was even struggling. Su Zimo's actions caused his Dao heart to waver. He was invaded by the killing intent and almost lost it. This is bad. Perfected Immortal Jade Toad was alarmed and focused hurriedly, wanting to stabilize his Dao heart and persevere a little more. Right then, Su Zimo glanced sideways and said indifferently, "Senior brother Jade Toad, I'll wait for you at the front." Those words were initially used by Perfected Immortal Jade Toad to agitate Su Zimo. Now it was the final straw that crushed his Dao heart. "You!" Perfected Immortal Jade Toad was enraged and killing intent surged. The moment that killing intent appeared, it was unstoppable and burst forth like a ferocious beast. Chapter 2277 Ruined Dao. 2277 Ruined Dao. Killing intent surged into the spirit platform in his consciousness, and even the essence spirit of Perfected Immortal Jade Toad was stained with blood. This is bad. Perfected Immortal Jade Toad was alarmed and realized that something was amiss. He composed himself hurriedly and held his breath, wanting to disperse the killing intent in his heart. However, the killing intent on the third stone step was extremely ferocious and swarmed in the moment it found an opening. Given Perfected Immortal Jade Toad's capabilities, he could not defend against the killing intent of the third stone step to begin with. Right now, his Dao heart wavered, and in the blink of an eye, his consciousness was occupied by killing. His eyes were bloodshot and his face turned incomparably menacing. Kill. 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 Perfected Immortal Jade Toad waved his arms repeatedly with a tragic expression as he howled at the top of his lungs in all directions, completely deranged. Everyone could tell that Perfected Immortal Jade Toad's Dao heart was corroded by the killing intent, and he was in a chi deviation state that he could not extricate himself from. This is bad. Fang Qingyun frowned slightly and murmured. The tens of thousands of inner sect disciples were horrified as well. Under normal circumstances, when cultivators were ascending the Dao heart stairs, the moment they saw that the situation was bad and they could not withstand the impact of the will of the stone step, they would hurry down and escape unscathed. However, the situation for Perfected Immortal Jade Toad was different this time round. That was because Su Zimo had surpassed him and ascended the fourth stone step, causing his Dao heart to waver and reveal an opening. Right then he was enraged and his killing intent rose. That trace of killing intent resonated with the killing intent on the third stone step and instantly occupied Perfected Immortal Jade Toad's entire consciousness. It was already too late for him to break free. There were many inner sect disciples outside the sacrificial platform, but at that moment, they could not step forward to save him. The barrier formed by the countless runes outside the sacrificial platform could not only isolate sound but also everything else. The power of heaven immortal experts could not penetrate it at all. Senior brother Qingyun, what should we do? Yan Bingying was a little worried when she saw that. Someone will come. Fang Qingyun had a calm expression and was in no hurry. Perfected Immortal Jade Toad was a legacy disciple and there were many experts in the academy. If anyone sensed the commotion here, they would definitely not stand by idly. No matter how strong or weak a Perfected Immortal was, they were a power that could not be ignored in any sect or faction. Right then, a figure crossed many cultivators and penetrated the barrier outside the sacrificial platform instantly. Arriving before the Dao Heart stairs, he waved his robes and they extended dozens of feet, sweeping Perfected Immortal Jade Toad down from the third stone step. Old Xian? Elder Zhong exclaimed softly. The person who stepped in was the old man that Su Zimo saw outside the Earthgrade Secret Pavilion. This old man was rather mysterious in Heaven and Earth Academy and guarded the various secret pavilions of the sect. He would often rotate between the Earthgrade Secret Pavilion and Heavengrade Secret Pavilion. Nobody knew his cultivation realm or status in the academy. Everyone only knew that no one in Heaven and Earth Academy seemed to dare to provoke this old Xian. Now that old Xian could pass through the barrier of the sacrificial platform with ease, it meant that his cultivation realm had at least surpassed the Heaven Immortal realm. Although Perfected Immortal Jade Toad was saved by old Xian from the third stone step, he had yet to regain consciousness. With a menacing expression and bloodshot eyes, his face and neck were filled with blood as he howled and struggled continuously. However, old Xian's robes seemed to contain endless power that enveloped Perfected Immortal Jade Toad's body such that the latter could not move at all. After more than 10 breaths, Perfected Immortal Jade Toad gradually calmed down. The blood vessels in his eyes and face faded gradually as he seemingly regained consciousness. Old Xian removed his robes. Perfected Immortal Jade Toad opened his mouth slightly, as though he wanted to say something. However, before he could say anything, he spat out a blood mist and fell to the ground, fainting. Old Xian glanced at Perfected Immortal Jade Toad and shook his head gently. He had already stepped in very quickly, but he was still a step too late. Perfected Immortal Jade Toad's Dao heart was penetrated by the killing intent and completely collapsed. His hundreds of thousands of years of cultivation was destroyed overnight. In the consciousness of Perfected Immortal Jade Toad, the Dao fruit was already filled with cracks. Even if he could awaken, he would not have much combat strength left. The only thing he retained might be his experience of cultivating to the Perfected Immortal realm. How is senior brother Jade Toad? Yan Bingying could not help but ask. Fang Qingyun's gaze was deep as he said coldly, he'll most likely be a cripple from now on. He should only be able to go to the servant courtyard for his remaining life. Pust. Many cultivators were speechless with shocked expressions. In everyone's hearts, a legacy disciple was an unreachable existence. To think that he would fall from his high pedestal and shatter into pieces right in front of them, ending up in such a tragic state. Instinctively, many cultivators turned their gazes towards the green-robed cultivator on the fourth stone step. The mockery and contempt in the eyes of many inner sect disciples had vanished. Although Perfected Immortal Jade Toad's cultivation was destroyed because he ascended the Dao Heart stairs, it was closely related to Su Zimo. This person crippled a legacy disciple the moment he joined the inner sect. How ruthless. He's the top of the earth ranking after all. What Dao heart did that lad condense to be so powerful that he can cross the third stone step? The killing intent on the third stone step was something that even most legacy disciples of the academy could not cross. But now, the killing step was left behind by a grade 1 heaven immortal who had just joined the inner sect and had never ascended the Dao heart stairs. Zimo 1. Princess Scarlet Rainbow finally revealed a smile and applauded. After Elder Zhong composed himself, he heaved a sigh of relief and shook his head. To think that Su Zimo would be able to cross the third stone step after ascending the Dao heart stairs for the first time. The younger generation will definitely surpass us. I knew that senior brother Su would definitely win. Lu Ping chuckled as well. Kid, why are you calling him senior brother Su now? When she saw that Su Zimo was safe and sound and even surpassed perfected immortal Jade Toad and Tang Peng, Princess Scarlet Rainbow relaxed and asked jokingly. Lu Ping said in all seriousness, although our cultivation realms are the same, I'm definitely inferior to senior brother Su in terms of combat strength. It's only logical for me to address him as senior brother. Furthermore, my life was given to me by senior brother Su. It won't be an exaggeration to call him my benefactor. Lu Ping pouted his lips. However, we're from the same sect after all. It's a little awkward to address him as benefactor. Su Zimo has already defeated Tang Peng and senior brother Jade Toad. Why is he still standing up there? Could he be thinking of crossing the fourth stone step? How ambitious. A commotion broke out in the crowd and Princess Scarlet Rainbow could not help but ask, Elder Zhong, what's the will on the fourth stone step? I heard that the fourth stone step is the nature step. Elder Zhong said, as for how it feels exactly, I've never experienced it before either. However, the difficulty of climbing the Dao heart stairs will increase. I heard that there's even a sword Dao step or something later on that's even more dangerous than the killing step. Chapter 2278 Continuous Climb. 2278 Continuous Climb. The outcome of the fight between perfected immortal Jade Toad and Su Zimo was decided. However, the tens of thousands of inner sect disciples present had no intention of leaving. Everyone's gazes landed on the green-robed cultivator on the fourth stone step. They wanted to see how much longer this junior brother who had just joined the inner sect could last. After old Xian saved perfected immortal Jade Toad, he did not leave either. Instead, he stood on the sacrificial platform and watched Su Zimo quietly. His endowment is indeed extraordinary. To think that his Dao heart would be so strong as well. Old Xian murmured softly. Back outside the Earthgrade secret pavilion, the first time he saw Su Zimo, he could tell that the latter had outstanding talent and he had a high evaluation of the latter. However, he had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to reach the fourth stone step and last so long. Old Xian's evaluation of Su Zimo rose once more. After so many years, the academy has finally recruited a decent seedling. He nodded to himself with a hint of admiration in his eyes. Dao heart stairs, fourth stone step. Su Zimo did not move at all. He closed his eyes and experienced the will of nature on the fourth stone step. The Tao of nature, the union of heaven and man. All living beings in the world have their own way of survival and are nurtured together without harming one another. The Tao is parallel but not contradictory. When we cultivate, we should be peaceful and follow the heavenly Tao. As the saying goes, man relies on earth, earth relies on heaven, heaven relies on the Tao and the Tao relies on nature. Unlike the ferocity and bloodthirst of the will of killing, the will of nature was like a gentle rain in early spring, infiltrating with the wind and nourishing everything silently, subtly affecting Su Zimo's Tao heart. The moment he broke free from the blood swamp of the killing intent, he was bathed in a warm and gentle spring rain, as though he had encountered dew after a long drought. In this drizzling rain, Su Zimo's essence, chi and spirit received immense comfort and consolation, causing him to fall into it uncontrollably and linger. This was even more difficult to defend against than the killing intent he experienced earlier on. Su Zimo paused on the fourth stone step for a longer time than the previous 3 stone steps combined. For a moment, the Tao heart of the green lotus true body almost sank. However, a blazing flame rose in the Tao heart of the martial Tao prime body. It was a flame of war. This was the fearless flame of war that fought against the heavens unyieldingly. At that moment, the martial Dao prime body was telepathic with green lotus true body and resisted the corrosion of the will of nature together. The flame of war incinerated the fine rain and dispersed the spring breeze. Peace and submission to the heavenly Dao. If he wanted to obey the heavenly Dao, Su Zimo would not have stepped onto the path of cultivation. He would have died a long time ago in that small town in that corner of Tianhuang mainland. Although the martial Dao was difficult, he was fearless. He was willing to advance alone on the arduous path of the martial Dao. On the fourth stone step, Su Zimo suddenly opened his eyes and took a step forward. Piak. Su Zimo's feet were already on the fifth stone step. Heavens, another stone step. Hurry and inform senior brother Lin that someone has ascended the fifth stone step. What a powerful Dao heart. How can a grade 1 heaven immortal who ascended from the lower worlds condense such a powerful Dao heart? A commotion broke out from the crowd. Old Xian nodded slightly with even more admiration in his eyes. Fifth stone step, fearless step. Su Zimo stood on the fifth stone step for less than 10 breaths. Before everyone's discussions subsided, Su Zimo took another step forward and ascended the sixth stone step. Ah! Look! A series of exclamations sounded as many cultivators looked at the green-robed figure on the Dao Heart stairs with dumbfounded expressions, as though they had seen a ghost. Sixth stone step? Impossible. If I'm not wrong, he's only just ascended the fifth stone step. How did he ascend another stone step so quickly? Many cultivators looked on in disbelief. That's impossible. Finally, a cultivator could not hold it in any longer and sped towards the Dao Heart stairs in a flash, muttering, "There must be a problem with the Dao Heart stairs. I'll give it a shot too." After the cultivator stepped onto the first stone step, he stumbled down without even ascending the second stone step. That scene dispelled the thoughts of the other eager cultivators. Old Xian had a calm expression. The Dao Heart stairs had existed for countless years and every single stone step was condensed from the Dao Heart wills of supreme experts. There was definitely no problem. However, even old Xian did not know how Su Zimo could cross the fifth stone step so quickly. The fifth stone step was the fearless step. The will of this step's Dao Heart was extremely similar to the will of the martial Dao Heart. Therefore, it was completely easy for Su Zimo to pass the Dao Heart trial on the fifth stone step with the martial Dao Heart. Senior brother Qingyun, Su Zimo is indeed very powerful. Yan Bingying could not help but exclaim when she saw that. Although she was ranked in the top 10 of the inner sect, even she had not broken through the fourth stone step. Fu. A hint of jealousy flashed through Fang Qingyun's eyes but disappeared quickly as he chuckled. Don't worry, he'll definitely stop at the sixth stone step. That's right. Yan Bingying nodded. The sixth stone step is the Sword Dao step. The impact on one's Dao Heart is even stronger than the killing step. This was where you stopped the previous time as well, senior brother Qingyun. Fang Qingyun said indifferently, during this period of time, my Dao Heart is close to perfected. Once I cultivate for another 100 years, I'll definitely be able to cross the sixth stone step and reach the seventh. At that time. The moment he said that, the figure on the Dao Heart stairs moved once more. It was yet another simple step forward. Bang. The seventh stone step. Fang Qingyun's expression froze and he could not continue. Yan Bingying's red lips were agape and her charming face was filled with shock and disbelief. The seventh stone step. Among all the disciples of Heaven and Earth Academy, including legacy disciples, there seemed to be less than 5 people who could step onto the seventh stone step. This Su Zimo who had just joined the inner sect had actually reached this stage. This time round there was not much noise from the crowd. On the contrary, the surroundings of the sacrificial platform gradually calmed down and became so silent that a pin drop could be heard. Tens of thousands of cultivators gathered and everyone held their breaths in shock as they looked at the figure on the Dao Heart stairs. Many cultivators forgot to breathe and speak. There was only a single thought in everyone's minds. How many steps could this person climb? Could Su Zimo be able to reach the 8th stone step of the Dao Heart stairs? A question crossed Elder Zhong's mind. However, he shook his head furiously immediately after and muttered in a soft voice, Impossible. What's impossible? Princess Scarlet Rainbow asked. Elder Zhong said, I heard that in the entire academy, only Sword Immortal Yuhua could ascend the 8th stone step of the Dao Heart stairs. Su Zimo is only a grade 1 heaven immortal, he shouldn't be ABL. The moment he said that, a figure on the Dao Heart stairs moved. Piak. Although the sound of his feet landing on the stone step was light, it rumbled like thunder in the ears of everyone. Su Zimo had ascended the 8-stone step. Chapter 2279, 2279 Ascension. 2279 Ascension. On the 8-stone step, a green-robed cultivator stood. His black hair danced and he exuded an indescribable aura. The tens of thousands of inner sect disciples of the academy looked at that figure with conflicted expressions. Some of them had yet to recover from their shock. Some of them revealed looks of admiration. Some of them lowered their heads slightly with ashamed expressions. Those who mocked and sneered at him earlier on felt their cheeks burn in shame at the thought of it. Although that figure was only at the 8-stone step of the Dao Heart stairs, it was as though he had already reached the peak of the immortal Dao, leaving behind the rest of the world as he looked down on all living beings. In reality, it was not everyone's imagination. None of the tens of thousands of inner sect disciples present had ascended the 8-stone step of the Dao Heart stairs. Even if most legacy disciples appeared, they would have to bow down when they saw the figure on the 8-stone step. The strength of one's Dao heart had nothing to do with their cultivation realm. However, in the hearts of many cultivators, it was assumed that the higher their cultivation realms, the stronger their Dao hearts would be. But now, Su Zimo's appearance had broken the understanding of many cultivators. This was a Grade 1 Heaven Immortal who had just entered the inner sect and ascended the Dao Heart stairs for the first time. In everyone's opinion, as long as one was attached to any single Dao, it would be difficult for them to surpass the 3rd stone step of the Dao Heart stairs, let alone advance further. Right now, all those different identities were condensed on a single person. That person was standing on the 8-stone step. Everyone still felt that everything was surreal. How was that possible? If they had not witnessed it personally, no one would believe it even if many people recounted it. Su Zimo, oh Su Zimo. Elder Zhong shook his head and sighed, lamenting, I never expected that he would cause such a huge commotion the moment he joined the inner sect. He had just entered the inner sect and was already standing on the 8-stone step after ascending the Dao Heart stairs for the first time. This was equivalent to trampling all the inner sect disciples beneath his feet. The shock of Su Zimo ascending the 8-stone step had already surpassed the crippling of perfected immortal Jade Toad. Lu Ping was long used to Su Zimo's methods. In his opinion, even if Su Zimo could reach the 9th-stone step, it was only right. As for Princess Scarlet Rainbow, apart from joy, she was also a little disappointed. Initially she thought that she was already a rare genius. Although she could not compare to Su Zimo, she felt that she was similar and would definitely have a chance to catch up in the future. But now she suddenly realized that the difference between them seemed to be increasing. Even though their cultivation realms were the same, it was as though she would never be able to catch up to that figure. Fang Qingyun was extremely scheming. Even though perfected immortal Jade Toad was crippled, he did not take it to heart and there were not many emotions in his eyes. However, at that moment, there was a hint of gloom in his eyes. He suddenly felt a tremendous threat. Initially, he did not take Su Zimo, who had just joined the inner sect and ascended from the lower world, seriously. To Fang Qingyun, given his capabilities, dealing with Su Zimo was as simple as crushing an ant. Furthermore, the difference in their cultivation realms was so great that Fang Qingyun had never regarded Su Zimo as an opponent. However, when Su Zimo stepped onto the 8-stone step and attracted the gazes of all the inner sect disciples, Fang Qingyun realized that his opponent in the inner sect had appeared. Although this opponent was still very weak right now, he would definitely become a strong foe one day. Right then, a woman's voice sounded from the side. Fang Qingyun glanced sideways and saw Yan Bingying staring fixedly at the figure on the 8-stone step. Her eyes were dazed as she murmured softly, "What has he experienced? How can he have such a powerful Dao heart?" Fang Qingyun was extremely familiar with that gaze. There was a hint of curiosity and admiration in that gaze. It was the same way Yan Bingying once looked at him. Fang Qingyun's expression darkened instantly with killing intent. Initially he merely wanted to teach Su Zimo a lesson. However, at that moment his killing intent was triggered. Yan Bingying was the #1 fairy of the inner sect and she was interested in him. That was a fact he had long known. However, he did not express anything explicitly. Yet, the fact that he did not express anything did not mean that others could lay their hands on Yan Bingying. Right then, on the sacrificial platform, old Xian who guarded the secret pavilion suddenly turned around and looked at Fang Qingyun expressionlessly. There was no emotion in that gaze. However, at that moment, Fang Qingyun broke out in cold sweat as though he was splashed with a basin of cold water from head to toe, and his heart trembled. In that instant, old Xian's gaze seemed to have seen through him from head to toe. All his thoughts, secrets, and even the killing intent that rose in his heart earlier on could not be hidden from old Xian's eyes. Fang Qingyun lowered his head hurriedly and avoided old Xian's gaze. The gloominess on his face vanished as he composed himself and panted slightly. At that moment he felt as though he had just walked through the gates of hell. "Senior brother Qingyun, what's wrong?" Yan Bingying noticed Fang Qingyun's abnormality and asked. "It's fine," Fang Qingyun said vaguely. Yan Bingying asked again, "Senior brother Qingyun, how long do you think Su Zimo can last on the 8-stone step?" "I'm not sure," Fang Qingyun replied distractedly in frustration. As though she did not notice Fang Qingyun's change, Yan Bingying continued, "Senior brother Qingyun, we were indeed the ones in the wrong for underestimating this junior brother previously just because of his background." Fang Qingyun harumphed coldly and did not reply. Yan Bingying seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, "Do you think junior brother Su can make it to the 9th stone step?" "Impossible." When he heard that, Fang Qingyun spoke instinctively and said resolutely, "The 9th stone step was condensed by the sect master of the academy. It's called the wisdom step. Even senior brother Yu Hua could not withstand it when he stood on the 9th stone step and fell from the Dao Heart stairs instantly. Who does Su Zimo think he is? How can he withstand the supreme wisdom of the sect master?" The moment he said that, the figure on the 8th stone step moved once more. Piak. Su Zimo strode towards the 9th stone step. Many cultivators held their breaths and glared at the figure on the Dao Heart stairs with widened eyes, not even daring to blink. They were afraid that they might miss the most critical moment in the blink of an eye. Su Zimo seemed to have difficulty advancing from the 8th stone step to the 9th. His feet hovered above the 9th stone step for a long time. The tens of thousands of inner sect disciples felt their hearts skip a beat as well, seemingly at the top of their lungs. All of them looked nervous as though they were the ones directly involved. 10 breaths. 20 breaths. 15 minutes passed. It was as though he could not take that step further. Just as everyone was about to relax, Su Zimo's feet landed on the 9th stone step with a bang and he reached the top. Chapter 2280-2289 Great Elders. 2289 Great Elders. Unlike Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Su Zimo did not fall the moment he reached the 9th stone step. Instead he stood firmly on it, his body upright and unyielding. The 9th stone step. Ever since the Dao Heart stairs existed, apart from the sect master, no one in Heaven and Earth Academy had been able to ascend to the 9th stone step. The 9th stone step was known as the wisdom step. The sect master of Heaven and Earth Academy studied celestial beings and could see through all living beings. He understood heavenly secrets and comprehended endless wisdom. This 9th stone step was condensed by the sect master. It was said that back then, after Sword Immortal Yu Hua failed to reach the 9th step, he merely said, "The sect master's Dao Heart is unreachable. He possesses supreme wisdom and is unfathomable." Ever since then, Sword Immortal Yu Hua did not attempt to ascend to the 9th step. As for the other disciples of Heaven and Earth Academy, they did not even have the ability to touch the 9th step, let alone stand on it like Su Zimo. Impossible. Instinctively, Fang Qingyun clenched his fists and growled deeply. However, he quickly realized that he had lost his composure and steadied himself. He hid the killing intent and hostility in his eyes and looked around. Thankfully, no one in the vicinity noticed him, and even old Xian did not look at him again. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the figure on the 9th stone step. That was the true focus of everyone. Nobody spoke. In the huge venue, tens of thousands of inner sect disciples were gathered. Although it was a large crowd, it was silent. Everyone was waiting for an outcome. Could this grade 1 heaven immortal who had ascended from the lower worlds and just joined the inner sect finally pass the Dao Heart trial of the 9th stone step? It hadn't been long since Tang Peng fainted and perfected immortal Jade Toad was crippled. Any one of those matters was enough to cause quite a stir in the academy. But now, many cultivators had already forgotten about it and no one cared. More and more cultivators gathered around the Dao Heart stairs. It was not only inner sect disciples. Some legacy disciples rushed over from the legacy ground as well, the entire Heaven and Earth Academy was alarmed. Swoosh! Right then, a strange fluctuation came from midair. Immediately after, an old man in white robes appeared in midair with a walking stick. Although his beard was white, he was hale and hearty and looked at the green-robed cultivator on the Dao Heart stairs with a bright gaze. "Look, it's the Grand Elder." Even the Grand Elder was alarmed. A commotion broke out in the crowd. Old Xian raised his head slightly and glanced at the Grand Elder indifferently before retracting his gaze without saying anything. Suddenly, in another void, a figure appeared as well. The moment that figure appeared, a thick bloodthirsty aura spread out, and it was as though a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood had appeared behind him. Although the old man looked much younger, his face was pale and his gaze was sinister, exuding a cold aura that no one could approach. After the old man appeared, many Academy disciples present could not help but shudder. "It's Elder 2. I heard that Elder 2 is in charge of discipline and is the most cold-blooded and impartial. There was once a legacy disciple who broke the sect rules and was crippled by him." "Silence. Don't let Elder 2 notice you." The commotion in the crowd calmed down rapidly. Phew. In the void on the other side, a pitch-black hole was suddenly burned out by a fireball and an old man walked out, as though he was bathed in flames. Within the flames, countless divine weapons hovered. "It's Elder 8 of the Academy." Elder Zhong said softly, "Elder 8 is in charge of all the divine weapons and forging dermic treasures in the Academy. Anyone who wishes to obtain the top dermic treasures and divine weapons of the sect will have to obtain his permission. Senior brother Su is ascending the Dao Heart stairs for the first time and caused such a huge commotion. 3 elders have already appeared." Lu Ping was secretly speechless. It's an unprecedented achievement to reach the peak of the Dao Heart stairs. Elder Zhong lamented, "It's only logical that these elders would appear to witness this." As the 3 of them spoke, another old man appeared in midair. This elder wore a green robe. After he appeared, the entire venue was filled with a faint medicinal fragrance that refreshed one's mind. "This is Elder 7 of the Academy." When Elder Zhong saw the confusion on the faces of Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping, he said, "Elder 7 is in charge of all the elixirs in the Academy. All the elixir refinement immortal masters in the Academy are managed by Elder 7. Before his sentence was finished, another old man appeared. This old man had a benevolent expression and looked extremely friendly. He had a smiling face and no beard, giving off a favorable impression right away. "This is Elder 4. Elder Zhong bowed slightly in the direction of Elder 4. Elder 4 is mainly in charge of external affairs in the Academy as well as some dermic arts trials. For example, Elder 4 was in charge of making arrangements to escort you guys to the 10,000-year meet. I'm under Elder 4's command." "Just how many elders are there in the Academy?" Princess Scarlet Rainbow could not help but ask. "There are many elders in the Academy and their cultivation realms are different. However, there are only 9 with the highest status." Elder Zhong said, "The 9 great elders each have their own duties and control everything in the Academy. The 9 of them are ranked right beneath the sect master." As Elder Zhong spoke, 2 more elders appeared. Elder 9 was in charge of talismans in the Academy. Elder 6 was a middle-aged beauty with an outstanding aura and a cold expression. She was in charge of all the structures in the Academy, including array formations. In the blink of an eye, 7 of the 9 great elders had already appeared. By the looks of it, there's a chance all of the 9 great elders might be gathered. Lu Ping whispered. Indeed, not long after, 2 more elders arrived together. Elder 3 was in charge of all the immortal mountains, spirit peaks, paradise and cultivation resources such as essence spirit stones, essence spirit liquid and so on in the Academy. He was also in charge of assigning sect missions. The appearance of Elder 5 caused quite a stir. It was as though a massive army was gathered behind him and he exuded a steely killing intent with a suffocating might. Elder 2 was in charge of discipline and the killing intent he exuded was sinister and cold. However, the killing intent of Elder 5 was brutally savage. The 9 great elders of Heaven and Earth Academy appeared and stood in midair, surrounding the Dao Heart stairs as they looked at Su Zimo. Many cultivators were nervous and excited. It was a rare occasion for the 9 great elders to be gathered. Most of the inner sect disciples present might not even have the chance to meet the 9 great elders of the Academy after cultivating for hundreds of thousands of years. But now, Everyone had the opportunity to catch a glimpse of the 9 great elders thanks to a grade 1 heaven immortal who had just joined the inner sect. The 9 great elders appearing at the same time is extraordinary. Could there be a deeper meaning? Elder Zhong pondered for a moment. As though he recalled something, his heart skipped a beat as he whispered, "Could it be?" "What?" Lu Ping could not help but ask curiously. The 9 great elders might be thinking of taking in Su Zimo under their wings. Elder Zhong said sternly. "Ah." Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping exclaimed softly. Elder Zhong had a stern expression. If he joins one of those elders, he'll become a legacy disciple of the academy. Su Zimo is about to experience a meteoric rise to the top. Chapter 2281 Organizing the Heavenly Secrets. 2281 Organizing the Heavenly Secrets. A legacy disciple. Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping were shocked. They had just joined the inner sect and knew almost nothing about the legacy ground of the academy. Elder Zhong explained, the 9 great elders are all immortal king experts. Typically, inner sect disciples only have a chance to join the 9 great elders and become legacy disciples after entering the perfected one realm. But now, Su Zimo's ascension of the Dao Heart Stairs caused the 9 great elders to appear at the same time. This is the first time in the history of Heaven and Earth Academy. Who knows, perhaps the 9 great elders are indeed harboring thoughts of taking in a disciple in advance. Lu Ping smiled. I was not wrong to call him my senior brother. To think that senior brother Su would have such an opportunity. Princess Scarlet Rainbow lamented as well, if he can become a legacy disciple, it will indeed be a meteoric rise. The 3 of them were not discussing loudly. However, due to the silence around them, Fang Qingyun and the others who were not far away heard everything clearly. You must be dreaming. Fang Qingyun raised his brow and said, everyone knows that there's a prerequisite for becoming a legacy disciple. You have to advance to the perfected one realm and become a perfected immortal. I was just mentioning it casually. Elder Zhong was unwilling to argue with Fang Qingyun and replied with a smile. However, Fang Qingyun was unwilling to stop there. Elder Zhong, you've been in the inner sect for a while now and should know some things. Even in the legacy ground, not all legacy disciples have a chance to join the 9 great elders. That was indeed the truth. There were hundreds of legacy disciples in Heaven and Earth Academy and less than half of them could join the 9 great elders. Fang Qingyun shook his head gently and chuckled. Even if Su Zimo ascends the Dao Heart Stairs, his cultivation realm is too low. He's only a grade 1 heaven immortal. How is he qualified to join the 9 great elders? Right then, the oldest grand elder with a white beard in midair coughed gently and said slowly, Su Zimo's Dao Heart is strong and he's talented. However, his cultivation realm is too low. I'm afraid he's not suitable for the rest of you guys. Coincidentally, I'm still lacking a final disciple. You're wrong. Elder 3 said hurriedly, it's nothing much if his cultivation realm is low, that can be compensated. I have essence spirit stones and sufficient essence spirit liquid with me. If I nurture him with all my might, I'll be able to help him advance to the perfected one realm within 50,000 years. He was in charge of many cultivation resources of Heaven and Earth Academy and naturally had the confidence to say that. That's using your position for personal gain. Elder 2 said sinisterly, if you break the sect rules, I won't show any mercy. Pausing for a moment, he continued, I heard that this lad is decisive to kill and is cold-blooded and heartless. In my opinion, my legacy is the most suitable for him to inherit. It's not impossible for him to be in charge of discipline in the academy in the future as well. You guys. The Grand Elder raised his walking stick and knocked a few times heavily. He blew his beard and glared. I'm already in my twilight years and don't have much lifespan left. On account of this, don't fight with me. Grand Elder, that's 2 different things. Elder 6 smiled faintly. My disciples are all female cultivators and I happen to lack a male disciple. I think Su Zimo is not bad. Elder 6 had a voluptuous figure. Although she was middle-aged, her skin was still smooth and delicate. She had an outstanding aura and even a gentle smile carried a unique charm. I heard that he went on a massacre at the 10,000-year meet. Suddenly, Elder 5 spoke with a voice that was like metal clashing. This lad is so murderous and is most suitable to cultivate under my lead. All of you don't fight with me. In midair, the 9 great elders started arguing, causing the tens of thousands of Academy disciples below to be dumbfounded. In the hearts of many Academy disciples, the 9 great elders were mysterious existences that were high and mighty in the Academy. To think that they would be like ordinary people right now, arguing endlessly for the sake of a disciple of the Academy, none of them were willing to give in easily. Fang Qingyun's smile froze on his face with an awkward expression. It was only at that moment that he realized that the impact of ascending the Dao Heart Stairs in Heaven and Earth Academy was much greater than he had imagined. Fang Qingyun lowered his head slightly to hide the gloominess in his eyes. If Su Zimo were to truly join the 9 great elders and become a legacy disciple, Su Zimo's status in the Academy would be above him. Initially, even if he lost this time round, he had many methods to deal with Su Zimo. However, if Su Zimo was a legacy disciple, he would not dare to act rashly. On the Dao Heart Stairs, Su Zimo was undergoing the final Dao Heart trial and naturally could not sense everything that was happening outside. He did not know that the outside world had almost fallen apart because of his actions. The will contained in the Wisdom Step was naturally not as impactful on Su Zimo's Dao Heart as the Killing Step and Sword Dao Step. However, the wisdom and will left behind on this stone step was all-encompassing and vast. Astronomical and calendar reading, secret skills, astral absorption, weather comprehension, divination, feng shui visualization, talisman deciphering, auspicious selection and lot picking. The wisdom and will of the stone step contained endless information and secrets that could see through the world and explore the vast universe in an unfathomable manner. Those things seemed to have transformed into countless strange foreign runes that contained mysterious heavenly secrets that surged into his consciousness continuously. The runes were dense and covered the skies endlessly. The heart of the martial Dao burned with raging flames and refined the strange runes that swarmed over from the will of wisdom continuously. The will of the wisdom step could not shake the heart of the martial Dao either. The flames of war in the martial Dao heart intensified and his fighting spirit intensated. However, the 9th stone step did not seem like it was merely a test of one's Dao heart. The countless strange runes were still attacking Su Zimo's mind. Su Zimo was in the vast dark starry skies and was surrounded by endless strange runes. He felt as though he was about to be drowned and his head was about to explode. Although he did not recognize those runes, each of them contained the supreme wisdom of the Sect Master. Given his current cultivation realm, his consciousness could not withstand these profound and endless runes. On the 9th stone step, Su Zimo's figure swayed slightly, as though he was about to fall from above. In his consciousness, the green lotus essence spirit waved the Trinity auspicious Jade, wanting to defend against the endless strange runes around it. However, even the mighty power of the Trinity auspicious Jade could not knock down the runes. Right then, the primordial unity horsetail whip in the green lotus essence spirit's other hand flew out of his palm and flicked gently in his consciousness a couple of times. Strangely enough, after the jade handle and white threads of the primordial unity horsetail whip swayed a few times in his consciousness, the runes that surged and suddenly quietened down in an orderly manner. The 3,000 threads sorted out the heavenly secrets. Under the combing of the primordial unity horsetail whip, the runes gradually left Su Zimo's mind. Strange. Su Zimo could clearly sense that there seemed to be some power similar to the strange runes on the primordial unity horsetail whip, as though they originated from the same source. The primordial unity horsetail whip was triggered by the strange runes and its green jade handle shone, as though a seal had been removed. At the same time, a lineage memory surged into Su Zimo's mind. Crown of the Eternal Realm. Chapter 2282 2282 10th Stone Step. 2282 10th Stone Step. After the Green Lotus True Body advanced to Grade 11, Su Zimo obtained this horsetail whip dermic treasure. However, there were extremely few lineage memories of this dermic treasure. He only knew that it was called the Primordial Unity Horsetail Whip and did not know anything else. Now that Su Zimo was on the 9th stone step, the strange runes seemed to have triggered some sort of seal on the Primordial Unity Horsetail Whip, causing a lineage memory to surge into his mind. The Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra. In that memory, there was a secret skill sutra that was divided into 2 sections with slightly more than 600 words. However, Su Zimo could not understand a single word of the contents of those 2 sections. That was because the contents were written by the strange runes he had seen previously. He did not know what each of the runes meant, let alone what use the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra had or what it had to do with the Primordial Unity Horsetail Whip. Su Zimo comprehended for a long time but could not come up with anything. Although the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra only had slightly more than 600 words, it was like a heavenly book to him. Su Zimo stood on the Tao Heart stairs and was surrounded by the wills of 9 supreme experts. However, the changes in his consciousness was not something that could be sensed by outsiders. Although the entire process sounded short, more than 2 hours had passed. Su Zimo stood on the 9th stone step for an entire 2 hours. However, the 9 great elders did not leave and waited at the side, looking extremely patient. Elder 8, if you can't wait, you can head back first. Elder 3 smiled. I reckon that he won't learn blacksmithing from you even after the trial is over. That's none of your business. Elder 8 had a fiery temper and shouted like a bell, I'll wait here. If this lad joins me, he'll definitely have enough divine weapons for everything. By the looks of it, this lad has even passed the wisdom step condensed by the sect master. The Grand Elder nodded slightly and stroked his beard with his large hands, looking increasingly satisfied. Reaching the peak of the Tao Heart stairs versus clearing the trial of the 9th stone step. Those were 2 completely different scenarios and outcomes. The fact that Su Zimo was able to ascend the Tao Heart stairs proved that his Tao Heart was strong. That was enough to have the 9 great elders fight to take him in as a disciple. However, it would be even rarer if he could pass the trial of the 9th stone step of the Tao Heart stairs. This time round, the 9 great elders would definitely not give in. All of them were planning in secret as to how they should rope Su Zimo in after the latter's trial ended. Right then, Elder 4 frowned slightly and looked at old Shen beside the Tao Heart stairs, exclaiming softly, Why isn't that old man guarding the secret pavilions? Why is he here? I heard that Jade Toad challenged Su Zimo to a battle on the Tao Heart stairs and was attacked by the killing intent of the 3rd stone step earlier on. Old Shen was the one who saved him. Elder 9 said, Although his cultivation is destroyed, he survived. Elder 5 sneered, with the loss of his cultivation, even if he survived, he's equivalent to a cripple and is no different from ants. Elder 2's expression was dark the entire time as he said coldly, Since he's already saved, what's that old man still doing here? Could he be thinking of taking in a disciple as well? Elder 3 teased. Foo-foo. Elder 7 chuckled. What can he teach? Does he want Su Zimo to learn from him on how to guard the secret pavilions or the entrance of the sect? Should we chase him away? Elder 8 frowned slightly. He's standing so close to the Tao Heart stairs. It's an eyesore. He might affect Su Zimo's trial. The Grand Elder said nothing the entire time as the other elders discussed old Shen. He merely had a faint smile on his face. It was only when the Grand Elder heard the others talk about chasing away old Shen that he said slowly, Forget it, he's the de facto old man of the academy after all. He's been in the academy for even longer than the sect master. Just give him some face and ignore him. The 9 great elders had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years, but they had never heard such sounds. The world shook and the great Tao resonated. Su Zimo took another step forward and condensed the 10th stone step. Chapter 2283 Sect Master of the Academy. 2283 Sect Master of the Academy. This time round, it was not only the many academy disciples present, even the 9 great elders were shocked. The sounds of the dermic conch and drum were no ordinary sounds. They were immortal sounds, Sanskrit and heavenly music. Immortal king experts like the 9 great elders felt incomparably tiny against those immortal sounds, let alone inner sect disciples and legacy disciples. Many disciples of the academy were completely stunned. Shock, confusion and disbelief. Everyone's eyes widened and there was only a single thought in their minds, how was that possible? Nobody present had witnessed the scene of the sect master condensing the 9th stone step. But now they had the chance to witness the formation of the 10th stone step personally. Not only did Su Zimo pass the trial of the Tao Heart stairs, he even created a 10th stone step. The 10th step came above the 9th. This was not a simple numerical advancement. More than that, it meant that Su Zimo's Tao Heart seemed to have broken through some sort of limit and was even above the sect master of the academy. Was that possible? Su Zimo was only a grade 1 heaven immortal. Although the strength of one's Dao heart had nothing to do with their cultivation realm, could a Dao heart condensed by a grade 1 heaven immortal be so strong? The condensation of each stone step on the Dao heart stairs was one harder than the other. In order to condense a stone step at the back, one would first have to endure the previous Dao heart trial. That was a huge test for most cultivators. When this generation's sect master of the academy condensed the 9th stone step, everyone thought that it was the limit and endpoint. 9 was an extreme number and it was impossible to break that limit. Who could withstand the trial of the 9 stone steps of the Dao heart stairs and advance beyond the sect master's wisdom step, creating a 10th stone step? This scene had a huge psychological and visual impact on everyone present. After passing the trial of the Dao heart stairs, Su Zimo was at best the number 1 in the history of Heaven and Earth Academy. He attracted the 9 great elders to gather and fight to take him in as a disciple. But now the 10th step on the Dao heart stairs was formed. He could no longer be described as the number 1 in the history of the academy. Such an achievement was unprecedented and was enough to be recorded in the books of the academy and leave a mark in history. Heavens, what Dao heart did senior brother Su condense to be so strong? Lu Ping's tiny mouth was agape and he was in a daze, unable to recover from the scene before him. Elder Zhong gulped. Now that I think about it, it's no wonder why perfected immortal Jade Toad lost. What sort of existence did he provoke? He condensed the 10th stone step on the Dao heart stairs. If news of this spreads, it will probably cause a huge stir in the entire divine firmament immortal domain. Princess Scarlet Rainbow murmured softly, the impact of this matter will definitely be greater than the battle at the 10,000-year meet. Actually, Princess Scarlet Rainbow had still underestimated the significance of the 10th stone step of the Dao heart stairs. The fact that Su Zimo passed the 9 stone steps of the Dao heart stairs was enough to cause a huge stir in the divine firmament immortal domain. Now that he had condensed the 10th stone step above the sect master of the academy, news of this would shock the 9 firmament immortal domain and even the heavenly world. Right then a figure suddenly appeared in midair. Nobody could see how that figure appeared. By the time everyone looked over, that person was already standing there. The person wore a green Confucian robe and was upright. Although he was merely standing in the air with his hands behind his back, he exuded a dignified aura. In front of this person, even the 9 great elders seemed to be inferior. The sect master is here. Elder Zhong exclaimed. Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping looked over instinctively. Their gazes landed on the sect master's face and froze, unable to shift away. The sect master looked to be only middle-aged with a hint of gray at the temples. His face was handsome and flawless, much younger than the 9 great elders. His forehead was high and pronounced, seemingly filled with endless wisdom. The most striking thing was his eyes that were deep and mysterious like the resplendent stars in the night sky. They were also like gems in the depths of the sea that shone with a strange luster. With a single glance, one could not help but sink into them, as though they possessed endless demonic power. Those eyes were filled with deep melancholy as well as energetic vigor. There were vast starry skies, all objects in the world, the rumbling mortal world as well as living beings. Through those eyes, everyone seemed to see different worlds and contrasting scenes. The appearance of the sect master attracted everyone's attention. Sect master. The 9 great elders cupped their fists slightly. Greetings, sect master. Many cultivators below bowed as well and called out in unison. On the sacrificial platform, Old Shin finally raised his head and looked at the sect master, nodding slightly. The commotion this time round was so great that even the sect master was alarmed. Now that the sect master has appeared, could he be thinking of taking in a disciple as well? It can't be, right? I heard that the sect master has extremely stringent requirements for taking in disciples. Right now he only has 6 disciples and I heard that Fairy Mo Ching is one of them. The condensation of a 10th stone step is unprecedented and unlikely to be surpassed in the future. It's not impossible for the sect master to take a liking to him given his strong Dao heart. Many cultivators whispered among themselves. Sect master, why are you? Elder 3 probed. A 10th stone step is condensed above my wisdom step. Naturally, I have to take a look at the one with such capabilities. The sect master looked at Su Zimo and praised, you're so young and only a grade 1 heaven immortal. How rare. Sect master, don't tell me you want to take him in as a disciple as well? Elder 6 asked bluntly. Why not? The sect master looked at Elder Six and asked with a smile. Meeting the eyes of the sect master, Elder Six blushed slightly. She turned her head and waved it off, saying softly, "Forget it. Since you want to take him in as a disciple, I'll withdraw. This is an unpolished Jade." The sect master said warmly, "I'll teach him personally." The moment he said that, it meant that there was almost no doubt that the sect master would take Su Zimo in as his disciple. If he could join the sect master, it would naturally be better than joining the 9 great elders. That was because there was probably no one in the academy who was more capable than the sect master. The requirement for the sect master to take in disciples was extremely stringent as well. Right now there were only 6 disciples under him. Among them, Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Painting Immortal Mo Qing were famous in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain and even 9 Firmament Immortal Domain. If Su Zimo could join the sect master, he would be the junior brother of Painting Immortal Mo Qing as well as Sword Immortal Yu Hua, and his status would be comparable to theirs. What sort of privilege would that be? Since the sect master is here, I have nothing to say. Elder Two announced his withdrawal. The other elders did not insist either. The 9 great elders knew in their hearts that although they were all Immortal King experts, their methods and capabilities were far inferior to the sect master of the academy. "I don't agree." Right then, a voice sounded in the mind of the sect master. Apart from him, no one else noticed it. Chapter 2284 In-Name Disciple. 2284 In-Name Disciple. The sect master of the academy's expression did not change when he heard that voice, as though he was not surprised. The sect master's gaze was still fixed on Su Zimo. He did not lower his head to look at old Xian and asked with a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness expressionlessly, "Why not? Even for the matter of taking in disciples, there has to be an order to things." Old Xian sent a voice transmission, "I took a liking to this lad first. You were a step too late." "You want him to inherit your legacy?" the sect master asked again. "That's right." Old Xian said, "This lad's Dao heart is unprecedentedly strong. Only such a Dao heart can shoulder the responsibility of my lineage." The sect master said indifferently, "To be fair, given his endowment and talent, coupled with his resolute and powerful Dao heart, it's a waste for him to inherit your legacy." "Cut the crap." Old Xian was a little displeased. "Ever since Heaven and Earth Academy was established, my lineage has a huge responsibility and it concerns the future of the academy. How is it a waste? Actually, in my opinion, there's no meaning to your lineage to begin with." The sect master replied, "Hundreds of thousands of years ago, I took over as the sect master and you inherited the position of Elder 10 of the academy. However, after so many years, you have had nothing to do with the development of the academy. To be precise, ever since Heaven and Earth Academy was established, the position of Elder 10 has never been of any use all these years." Old Xian was silent. He knew in his heart that due to his special identity, he could not interfere in the affairs of the academy as Elder 10. In fact, even his identity was a top secret in Heaven and Earth Academy. After a moment of silence, Old Xian said, "No matter what, this was the rule set up by the previous sect master. You're the one in the open while I stay in the dark. How can we call it off so easily?" "That's right. Apart from the Grand Elder, even the other 8 elders don't know your true identity since you're in the dark." The sect master sighed and asked instead, "Do you want Su Zimo to accept your legacy and be like you, only able to hide everything and live in the dark from now on? He's still young. Isn't it way too cruel to hand such a heavy burden to him?" Old Xian fell silent once more with his head lowered. The sect master continued, "If he joins me, I'll guide and protect him. Given his talent and endowment, he'll definitely be able to become famous in the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain in the future and lead a carefree life. What's bad about that? I can understand your love for talent. However, isn't it a little selfish for you to place all the burden on him for the sake of the legacy of your lineage?" After a long silence, Old Xian suddenly gave a strange laugh. "I'm not like you who have already taken in 6 disciples. My lineage will only have a single disciple. It's not easy for me to meet someone good. I won't let this go. However, I've already appeared here and said that I wanted to take him in as a disciple. How can I renege on my words in front of so many disciples?" The sect master smiled bitterly in exasperation. "I don't care." Old Xian rolled his eyes. When the sect master of the academy saw that old Xian refused to back down, he could not help but sigh gently. The melancholy in his eyes seemed to have intensified. How about this? Let's both compromise. A moment later the sect master said, I've already said that I want to take him in as a disciple. Naturally I can't go back on my words. I can accept him as an in-name disciple first. Once he enters the perfected one realm and becomes a perfected immortal, he can choose for himself to join me or to inherit your legacy. How about that? Yes, that's fairer. Old Xian's eyes darted around. This can be considered as respect for his wishes. No matter who he joins, it's his choice. Furthermore, he's only a heaven immortal and his cultivation realm is too low. It might not be a good thing for him to be pushed to the position of a legacy disciple right away. Pausing for a moment, old Xian continued, after you accept him as an in-name disciple, let him train and cultivate in the inner sect first. Ife's thrown to the legacy ground right away and is surrounded by perfected immortal experts, his days won't be easy. Right then, the 10th stone step beneath Su Zimo's feet was fully condensed. Su Zimo stood on the 10th stone step and closed his eyes for a long time, reminiscing about the tempering of the 9 Dao heart wills. The Dao hearts of his 2 true bodies became increasingly perfect and indestructible. The flames of war on the Dao hearts of the 2 true bodies were extinguished after the 10th stone step was formed. The 10th stone step was named the martial Dao step. Su Zimo left the willpower of his 2 true bodies on it. Anyone who stepped onto the 10th stone step would have to endure the impact of the martial Dao will. That was an unimaginable power that burned like fire and could incinerate all living beings. Those with weak Dao hearts would even incinerate their Dao heart upon reaching the 10th stone step. A long time later, Su Zimo opened his eyes slowly. The surroundings were strangely silent. Sensing something, Su Zimo looked up instinctively and saw 9 old men surrounding the Dao heart stairs, watching him. There was a myriad of gazes, cold, benevolent, friendly admiration. Su Zimo's gaze swept past the 9 old men rapidly and landed on another Confucian-robed man. Their gazes met gently in midair. A bang sounded in Su Zimo's mind as he recalled the countless strange runes that appeared on the wisdom step. In the eyes of the Confucian-robed man, Su Zimo seemed to be able to see the endless starry skies, the dark and boundless deep sea, countless astronomical calendars and secret skills. It was as though all the secrets in the world could not be hidden from those eyes. You're impressive. The Confucian-robed man spoke in a deep and magnetic voice. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he woke up. He exchanged glances with the Confucian-robed man and realized that the person before him was the sect master of Heaven and Earth Academy who had condensed the 9th stone step of the Dao Heart Stairs. Greetings, sect master. Su Zimo bowed. Even he did not realize that the sect master of the academy was alarmed when he condensed the 10th stone step of the Dao Heart Stairs. You might have to change the way you address me from now on. The sect master smiled gently. Ha! Su Zimo was slightly stunned. Previously, he was immersed in condensing the 10th stone step and did not know what was happening outside. The sect master surveyed his surroundings. When you ascended to the 9th step of the Dao Heart Stairs, the 9 great elders of the academy appeared at the same time and wanted to take you in as their disciples. When you condensed the 10th stone step later on, even I was tempted. At that point, the sect master smiled. However, your cultivation realm is insufficient. If I take you in as a legacy disciple directly, wouldn't it be unfair to the other legacy disciples? I'll take you in as an in-name disciple first. If there's a day when you can advance to the perfected one realm and become a perfected immortal, it won't be too late for you to join me. Pausing for a moment, the sect master swept his gaze across old Xian on the sacrificial platform inadvertently and continued, of course, when you become a perfected immortal, it's up to you if you want to join the other elders as well. Chapter 2285 Teleportation Jade Badge. 2285 Teleportation Jade Badge. When the elders heard that, they were puzzled. According to the initial intention of the sect master, he wanted to take Su Zimo in as his personal disciple directly. Why did the latter become an in-name disciple at the last minute? Naturally, the elders did not know what happened during this period of time that caused the sect master to change his mind. The Grand Elder's expression changed as he glanced at old Xian on the sacrificial platform in deep thought. Su Zimo. The sect master had a warm expression as he looked at Su Zimo and asked with a smile, "Are you willing to join me as an in-name disciple?" "I'm willing." Su Zimo bowed and replied in a deep voice. Although he was only joining the sect master as an in-name disciple, there were no disadvantages for him. He had no reason to reject this. Many cultivators present revealed deep envy in their eyes. Even though he was only an in-name disciple, his status far surpassed ordinary inner sect disciples. This was the in-name disciple of the sect master of the academy. If nothing went wrong, he would definitely join the sect master as a personal disciple in the future. At that moment, Tang Peng had already woken up and could not accept the scene before him. He had merely fallen from the Dao Heart stairs and fainted. However, he would have never expected that the moment he woke up, the Heaven Immortal who had just entered the inner sect would soar with a meteoric rise and was even above him in terms of status now. The flow of fate seemed mysterious and cruel at this moment. "Senior brother Fong, what happened?" Tang Peng was still in disbelief as he clenched his fists and grit his teeth. "How did that person jump over our heads?" "Don't fluster, don't panic." Fang Qingyun had a calm expression as he sent a voice transmission. "Su Zimo is only an in-name disciple and not a true legacy disciple. We still have a chance." Right then, the sect master retracted his smile and surveyed his surroundings. Every disciple had a feeling that he was being watched. "Everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy, listen up." The sect master said slowly, "Today's matter of the Dao Heart Stairs and Su Zimo's identity as my in-name disciple is not to be spread without my permission. Anyone who reveals it intentionally will be charged with the same crime of harming their fellow sect mates and will be killed without mercy." After the sect master appeared, he was polite throughout and even smiled from time to time, giving off an intimate feeling. But now, when the sect master said those words, he exuded the might and killing intent of a superior. Not to mention the disciples present, even the 9 great elders shuddered. Fang Qingyun's expression froze and his expression turned terrible. Initially, he was still contemplating how he should turn the tides and plot against Su Zimo. But now that the sect master said that, he was so scared that his heart skipped a beat and many of his previous thoughts vanished instantly. In fact, Fang Qingyun even had the illusion that the sect master had read his mind and that those words were a warning. What's the rationale of the sect master? Lu Ping could not help but ask. If word of what happened today is spread, it will definitely cause a huge stir in the divine firmament immortal domain. Elder Zhong explained, at that time, countless gazes and attention will be focused on Su Zimo. That is equivalent to pushing Su Zimo to the center of attention. Who knows how much danger and hostility he'll endure in that position. By not allowing anyone from the academy to spread the news, the sect master is actually protecting Su Zimo. Lu Ping nodded, not fully understanding. Princess Scarlet Rainbow frowned and asked, "However, so many people from Heaven and Earth Academy witnessed the huge commotion today. Even if someone leaked it intentionally, how would he know who did it?" "Fufu, that's the power of the sect master." Elder Zhong smiled. "He has supreme wisdom and can see through the heavenly secrets. Who is confident that he can hide from the sect master's senses and expose this matter at the risk of being killed? Furthermore, even if 1 or 2 people leak it, no one will believe it." A Grade 1 Heaven Immortal passed the trial of the 9 stone steps of the Dao Heart Stairs and created a 10th stone step to be accepted as an in-name disciple by the sect master of the academy. If we hadn't seen it with our own eyes, who would have believed it? Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Lu Ping nodded hurriedly with deep emotions. Even though they saw it with their own eyes, the two of them felt an extremely surreal feeling that lingered for a long time. "Everyone disperse. Su Zimo, stay behind," the sect master said indifferently. The 9 great elders retreated right away and disappeared into the void with astonishing methods. The other cultivators left swiftly as well. Before long, only the sect master Old Xian and Su Zimo were left on the sacrificial platform. "You can understand my intentions, right?" The sect master looked at Su Zimo and asked warmly. Su Zimo hesitated for a moment before nodding. "The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind." The sect master said, "Your current cultivation realm is too low. It won't be good for you if news of this spreads. Once your cultivation realm is high enough to withstand everything, I'll naturally make this matter public." Su Zimo said, "I understand." The sect master nodded slightly and continued, Since you're an in-name disciple, you should train and cultivate in the inner sect first. Of course, if you have any cultivation doubts, you can look for me at any time. You can look for me as well. Suddenly, Old Xian interrupted from the side. Su Zimo was slightly stunned. Old Xian was only an old man guarding the secret pavilions. His actions seemed a little out of line and impolite. However, when Su Zimo saw that the sect master had a calm expression without any hint of reproach, he could not help but ponder internally. Su Zimo truly had a doubt towards cultivation. It was the strange runes in the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra with 600-odd words. Those runes were extremely similar to the runes on the wisdom step of the Dao Heart Stairs. Su Zimo was almost certain that the sect master knew about the strange runes and could help him resolve his doubts. However, the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra originated from the primordial unity Horsetail Whip and the latter came from the Green Lotus True Body. Su Zimo was worried that there would be traces of information about the creation Green Lotus in the contents of the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra and the existence of the Green Lotus True Body would be exposed. Although he had already joined the sect master, this was the upper world after all. Out of caution, Su Zimo did not take the risk. Hey! Old Xian looked askance at the sect master and raised his brow. In-name disciples are also disciples. No matter what, you have to give him some gifts. The sect master pondered for a moment and smiled. Suddenly, a small jade badge appeared in his palm. There were a few exquisite patterns etched on the badge. When Old Xian saw the badge, he nodded in a rare manner and urged Su Zimo, "This is not bad. Hurry and accept it. It can protect your life at critical moments." This is a teleportation jade badge. The sect master said, "As long as you're in the heavenly world, no matter where you are, as long as you encounter any danger you can't withstand, crush this badge and you'll be able to return to Heaven and Earth Academy at any time." This teleportation jade badge was equivalent to the major transference talisman of Tianhuang mainland. However, in the upper world, only immortal king experts whose cultivation had to reach the Grotto Heaven realm had the ability to travel through the void freely. In that case, this teleportation jade badge could indeed be considered as a life-saving jade badge. It was not easy to refine a teleportation jade badge as such. Typically, among the legacy disciples of immortal king experts, only the most valued ones would be accorded with one. Chapter 2286 Will of the 10th Stone Step. 2286 Will of the 10th Stone Step. Su Zimo received the teleportation jade badge and put it away, secretly delighted. Something like this was a true lifesaver. Back in Tianhuang mainland, Master Xian Bei gave him a major transference talisman. It had a similar use as the teleportation jade badge and allowed him to escape death from the pursuit of a half-martial ancestor. Old Xian said, "Su Zimo, if you want to raise your cultivation in the Heaven Essence realm quickly, it's not enough to just cultivate in seclusion. At the Earth Essence realm, as long as one is talented enough and spends most of their time in seclusion cultivation, they can cultivate to become a grade 8 or 9 Earth Immortal. However, in the Heaven Essence realm, one needs sufficient experience. It's best if they have powerful opportunities and encounters so that they can achieve twice the results with half the effort. I've learned from the guidance." Su Zimo bowed slightly. For cultivators, opportunities and encounters were way too important on the path of cultivation. That was a part of their fortune. Apart from the fact that Yunting specialized in the Tao of the Sword, the reason why his cultivation speed was so fast was also because he had obtained a few huge opportunities. Those were opportunities and encounters that would cause even Heaven Immortals and Perfected Immortals to be envious. "Of course, I heard that you've offended many people in Divine Firmament mainland. You have to be careful when you head out to train." Old Xian reminded again. Su Zimo agreed hurriedly. Although Old Xian was clearly not his master, for some unknown reason, his attitude towards him seemed unusual. Furthermore, the sect master did not seem surprised towards this and had a calm expression. "I'll take my leave first." Old Xian waved his hand and took a casual step forward, disappearing into the void. Pust. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Only immortal king experts should possess such methods. To think that the old man guarding the Earthgrade secret pavilion was an immortal king expert and seemed to have a special status in the academy. "You've just entered the Heaven Essence realm. It's better for you to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time to stabilize your cultivation realm and consolidate your foundation." The sect master said, Many things happened today. I won't disturb you anymore." With that, the sect master turned to leave. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly. He wanted to speak but hesitated. "Is there anything?" The sect master noticed Su Zimo's abnormality and took the initiative to ask with a warm expression. "Sect master, previously, on the way back to the academy from the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom, we were hunted down by an expert. Who is he?" Su Zimo asked the greatest question in his mind during this period of time. From the voice of the sect master, he could tell that this was the person who saved them previously. The sect master did not reply and fell silent. A moment later he shook his head gently. "I can't tell you his identity for the time being, but you can rest assured that he won't attack you again in the future." "Is he an immortal king?" Su Zimo asked again. "Yes." The sect master nodded. "The difference between you guys is too great. It's useless for you even if I reveal his identity now. When your cultivation realm is strong enough, I can tell you his identity." Su Zimo was silent and did not ask further. "Pretend that nothing happened and don't think too much about it. For you, the most important thing is to focus on cultivating and raise your cultivation as soon as possible." The sect master instructed before turning to leave. Su Zimo took a deep breath of air. The sect master was not wrong. Right now, the most important thing for him was to raise his cultivation realm. Su Zimo was prepared to enter seclusion once more. He had benefited immensely after returning from the 10,000-year meet. Now that the Prajna Nirvana Sutra was complete, his essence spirit would definitely improve if he continued comprehending it. The Hell Suppression Tripod was completely repaired and he had yet to cultivate the legacy secret skill of the fourth tripod wall. There was also the Primordial Unity Horsetail Whip and the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra. For this seclusion, rather than to just raise his cultivation, he had many things to comprehend as well. At that thought, Su Zimo no longer hesitated and turned to leave the sacrificial platform. He sped towards his cave abode and entered seclusion. Although he was entering seclusion, the impact of this matter in Heaven and Earth Academy was still ongoing. For a long time to come, he would become the center of discussion for disciples of the Academy. After that incident, the number of Academy disciples who ascended the Dao Heart Stairs increased significantly daily. However, for everyone the Dao Heart Stairs was still the same. No one else managed to achieve anything shocking and most Academy disciples could not surpass the third step still. What everyone discussed the most was what Dao Heart will Su Zimo left behind on the 10th stone step. However, no one could ascend it so naturally nobody knew what was there. A year later. It was only now that the Dao Heart Stairs gradually returned to normal. At times, nobody might even come for days. This night, there was no one around the Dao Heart Stairs. Suddenly, without any warning, a figure in a Confucian robe appeared in the skies above the Dao Heart Stairs. After the figure appeared, he waved his sleeves gently and formed an invisible barrier around the Dao Heart Stairs, isolating it from the outside world. The Confucian-robed man looked at the Dao Heart Stairs and his deep eyes shone with a strange glint. A moment later, the Confucian-robed man stepped onto the first step of the Dao Heart Stairs. In just a few breaths, the Confucian-robed man ascended to the second step. After a few more breaths, the Confucian-robed man ascended to the third step. The Dao Heart trial on the Dao Heart Stairs did not seem to have much of an impact on the Confucian-robed man. The Confucian-robed man walked up the stone steps and merely paused for a brief moment with each step. It did not cause much of a stir for him. In the blink of an eye, the Confucian-robed man had already ascended to the 8th stone step. Right then, another Academy disciple passed by and glanced over with a calm expression. The Confucian-robed man stood on the 8th stone step of the Dao Heart Stairs. However, in the eyes of the cultivator, there was still no one on it. This was a method similar to a disguise, but it was extremely brilliant. Even an immortal king might not be able to see through it. If this Academy disciple could see the Confucian-robed man on the Dao Heart Stairs, he would definitely be shocked. That was because the Confucian-robed man ascending the Dao Heart Stairs was the sect master of the Academy. The Academy disciple passed by this place and left quickly without stopping. The sect master had a calm expression as he took another step and ascended to the 9th stone step. The 9th stone step was the wisdom step that he had condensed. Naturally, the Dao Heart will of this level did not affect him at all. The sect master raised his head slightly and looked at the stone step above the 9th step. He smiled gently and murmured, I'm curious what a Dao heart that can surpass me is like. As he said that, the sect master lifted the hem of his Confucian robes and strode onto the 10th stone step. The moment his foot landed on 10th stone step, an unimaginably massive will descended from the skies and surged over like a volcano that was about to explode. The sect master had never felt such a powerful Dao heart will. It was fearless, courageous, bold and filled with wisdom. It was relentless against all beings that stood in its way. The skies could not cover it nor could the ground bury it. That Dao heart was brighter than the stars in the skies and shone resplendently with raging flames. Even his Dao heart could not defend against that will and began to burn. The sect master's expression changed starkly as he shuddered and fell from the Dao heart stairs. He stabilized himself in midair and landed slowly on the ground. He had failed. The sect master had a conflicted expression. Even he could not reach the 10th stone step of the Dao heart stairs. Chapter 2287 Coincidence? 2287 Coincidence. Ha 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 ha. Right then, an ear-piercing laughter sounded from behind the sect master of the academy. The sect master did not turn back nor was he surprised. In the academy there were less than 10 people who could see through his disguise technique. This man was one of them. Standing not far away, old Xian crossed his arms and said mockingly with a gloating expression, "To think that this would happen to you as well, hee hee. What a coincidence." The sect master turned around and looked at old Xian who was not far away, asking with a smile. This is no coincidence." Old Xian pouted. "I've been waiting for you in the vicinity for a year. Others might not know you, but do you think I don't understand you? Given your temperament, you won't be able to endure it if you see someone condense a 10th stone step above your wisdom step. However, I didn't expect you to be able to endure for a year before coming over secretly. If you waited any longer, I would have left." The sect master did not show any embarrassment after his thoughts were seen through. He merely shook his head and smiled. "You sure are free." Hee hee. Old Xian laughed again. "Notwithstanding the fact that you snuck over, you even set up a disguise, afraid that others would know. You clearly have no confidence and know that you won't be able to pass the 10th stone step." Old Xian had known the sect master for many years. However, the latter was incomparably intelligent and meticulous. He had never seen the latter suffer any losses. Now that he had finally caught the sect master in an embarrassing moment, old Xian was excited. "Let's not talk about me anymore. Do you want to give it a try?" The sect master asked with a smile. "No way." Old Xian rolled his eyes and pouted. "Wouldn't it be embarrassing if I can't even pass your wisdom step? There's no way I'm going to let you get a hold on me." The sect master smiled gently. "However, speaking of which..." Suddenly old Xian asked sternly, "What's the Dao heart will left behind by that lad on the 10th stone step?" "I'm not sure." The sect master shook his head. "This will is extremely brave and powerful. It has the sharpness of the sword Dao, unyielding resistance, fearlessness as well as carefree joy. I've seen countless Dao hearts but I've never seen such a Dao heart." "Who cares?" Old Xian waved it off. "In any case he's a good seedling. Once he enters the perfected immortal realm, we'll see who can take him in with our own capabilities." "No problem." The sect master nodded with a smile and waved his sleeves, prepared to leave. "Why, you don't intend to try again after failing just once?" Old Xian raised his brow and instigated. "What if I try again and fail? Won't I be mocked by you again?" The voice of the sect master sounded and he had already vanished. At the same time, the disguise technique around the Dao heart stairs dissipated silently without a trace. A gentle breeze blew past and there was no one left beside the Dao heart stairs. Unknowingly, old Xian had already left as well. Peace returned to this place. In a cave abode of the inner sect, a grade 9 heaven immortal who was done with his seclusion opened his eyes slowly and floated down from the praying mat. It was the inner sect disciple of the academy, Jianghu. Not far away a young boy stood. "Young master, why is your seclusion so short this time round?" The boy brewed a pot of tea at the side and sent it to Jianghu. "My cultivation has encountered a bottleneck and it's difficult for me to advance if I merely cultivate in seclusion." Jianghu shook his head gently and took the teacup. He took a deep breath and drank it in one gulp, despite the tea being scorching. He had been a grade 9 heaven immortal for a period of time now. In fact, some grade 9 heaven immortals would not be able to become perfected immortals and advance to the perfected one realm in their entire lives. For that group of grade 9 heaven immortals, as they grew older and saw no hope of breaking through, they sought a position as idol elders in the inner sect. Anyone who could join Heaven and Earth Academy were all paragons that had been through ferocious storms in life. Even so, many people could not advance to the perfected one realm. It was clear how difficult it was. There were only a few hundred legacy disciples in the academy. Yang Ruoxu was in no hurry and his mind was calm. He was not old and was less than 100,000 years old. There was enough time. As long as he could obtain a rare opportunity or encounter, he could advance to the perfected one realm. Did anything happen in the academy during this year? Yang Ruoxu asked casually. The boy said, nothing much. In the past year, the most discussed thing in the academy was the matter of Mr. Su passing the Dao Heart Stairs and condensing the 10th stone step. Oh. Yang Ruoxu replied indifferently, this matter has a huge impact. In the future, it might become the focus of discussion for everyone in the academy. Young master, I heard that you have a close relationship with Mr. Why didn't you meet him this time round? The boy was curious and frowned slightly. You're alone in the inner sect and don't have many confidants. Can't you hang out more with Mr. Su? A year ago, when Su Zimo passed the Dao Heart Stairs trial and condensed the 10th stone step, Yang Ruoxu received the news right away as well. However, he did not choose to head to the Dao Heart Stairs to meet and congratulate Su Zimo. On that day, the boy merely witnessed Yang Ruoxu being slightly happier than usual. The latter specially opened a jar of wine and stood in front of his cave abode as he congratulated Su Zimo from afar. The boy was puzzled. Yang Ruoxu said, I've made many enemies in the academy. Interacting with him will only cause trouble for him. It won't. The boy said, Fang Qingyun and the others are the only ones who have a feud with him. I heard that Mr. Su has already been accepted as a disciple by the sect master. If you can interact more with him, Fang Qingyun and the others won't even dare to cause trouble for you anymore as well. Yang Ruoxu remained silent and shook his head. He knew that Su Zimo was accepted as an in-name disciple by the sect master. However, in-name disciples were far from actual disciples. Furthermore, even if he was an actual disciple, Su Zimo was ranked behind Sword Immortal Yu Hua. Be it in terms of identity or cultivation realm, Su Zimo was inferior to Sword Immortal Yu Hua. He had a feeling that the person who truly wanted to deal with him was not Fang Qingyun and the others, but the personal disciple of the sect master in the legacy ground, Sword Immortal Yu Hua. The origin of that hostility was because of the immortal sect selection more than 1,000 years ago. At that time he was spared because of the appearance of painting immortal Imo Qing. A year ago, another change happened in the outer sect of the academy. At that time, for some unknown reason, when he was in danger, painting immortal Imo Qing appeared once more and saved him. Chapter 2288 Waiting for a Chance. 2288 Waiting for a Chance. Divine Firmament Mainland Huiying Mountain. Countless towering ancient trees covered the skies. On the peak, someone had built a spacious pavilion. Standing here, one could appreciate the magnificent scenery of the Huiying mountain range. This day a gigantic crane flew over from the west. On its back sat a young man with a dark expression. He was a grade 9 heaven immortal and his facial features were 70% similar to the inner sect disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy, Pang Yu. This was another direct descendant of the Pang clan, Pang Yu's brother, Pang Yi. The two brothers were extremely outstanding among the younger generation of the Pang clan and were specially groomed by the family clan. Pang Yu joined Heaven and Earth Academy while Pang Yi joined Imperial Wind Temple. In terms of combat strength, Pang Yi was even above Pang Yu. Leaping down from the crane's back, Pang Yi frowned instinctively when he saw that the pavilion was empty. He found a stone chair and sat down quietly, closing his eyes to rest. Before long, more than 10 figures sped over from the east. They were clad in armor and shone with cold lights. With sabers on their waists, they were all top-tier heaven immortals. Execution guards. Pang Yi opened his eyes and recognized their backgrounds right away. The emblem of the execution guards was way too obvious. A brocade-robed man stood in the middle of the execution guards with a demonic look in his eyes. Pang Yi stood up slowly and cupped his fists. "So, it's Prince Yuanzhua. Nice to meet you." After all, Prince Yuanzhua was once the prince who ruled over a county of the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. He was famous and Pang Yi had seen him before from afar. "You are?" Prince Yuanzhua was slightly stunned when he saw Pang Yi. "I'm Pang Yi of the Pang clan. Right now, I'm an inner sect disciple of Imperial Wind Temple." Pang Yi reported his identity. Prince Yuanzhua raised his brow slightly and a thought flashed through his mind. He quickly understood and asked, "You were also invited by fellow Daoist Qingyun?" "I am." Pang Yi nodded and did not hide anything. "However, fellow Daoist Qingyun doesn't seem to be here yet. Let's wait a little more." Prince Yuanzhua sat on a stone chair as well. Before long a figure appeared from the south. In a few breaths he arrived and descended. "Ah, fellow Taoist Gui Yuan of Flying Immortal Sect." Pang Yi stood up and greeted with cupped fists. Among the inner sect disciples of Flying Immortal Sect, the combat strength of Heaven Immortal Gui Yuan was ranked top 5. Prince Yuanzhua did not stand up and merely sat on the stone chair. He cupped his fists and smiled. "If I'm not wrong, fellow Taoist Gui Yuan was invited by fellow Taoist Qingyun as well, right?" "Yes." Heaven Immortal Gui Yuan did not talk much. Right then, a bejeweled serpent WRM carriage drove over slowly from the horizon not far away. The driver of the carriage had white hair and was dull and expressionless. However, everyone present felt a chill run down their spines the moment they exchanged glances with the driver. More than 10 execution guards surrounded Prince Yuanzhua hurriedly with nervous expressions. The carriage stopped in midair and the curtains of the carriage were lifted. A graceful and dignified young man walked out. This time round even Prince Yuanzhua stood up. "Greetings, Prince Tianhong." Prince Yuanzhua, Pang Yi and Heaven Immortal Gui Yuan stood up and cupped fists. Prince Yuanzhua had already lost his influence in the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. However, Xie Tianhong of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom still ruled over a territory and had an extremely high status. "There are so many people?" Xie Tianhong was surprised. "Everyone's sorry for the wait." Right then a voice sounded slowly. By the time he said the last word, Fang Qingyun had already descended on the peak of Huiyin Mountain with Tang Ping right behind him. "Fellow Taoist Qingyun, what's going on?" Xie Tianhong frowned and asked. "Everyone please take a seat." Fang Qingyun was in no hurry to explain. After everyone sat down again he said in a deep voice, "The reason why I gathered everyone today is because for the past year, all of you have sent me messages asking about Su Zimo. Of course, I know your intentions as well." Prince Yuanzhua, Xie Tianhong and the other three exchanged glances with a tacit understanding. Everyone present more or less knew about the feud between Su Zimo and one another. Prince Yuanzhua smiled. "To think that apart from me, there are actually so many experts who want to kill this person. I don't have any feud with him. I was merely entrusted by senior sister Meng Yao to take his life." Heaven Immortal Gui Yuan said indifferently. Pang Yi said coldly, "My brother was killed by him. I'm going to make him pay with his blood." Xie Tianhong did not explain. The reason why he wanted to deal with Su Zimo was entirely to curry favor with Zither Immortal Meng Yao. After everyone was done, Fang Qingyun spoke slowly, "Fellow Taoists, pardon me for being blunt. It won't be easy to deal with Su Zimo now. He has just advanced to the Heaven Immortal realm. Any one of us can kill him with ease. What's so difficult about that?" Prince Yuanzhua sneered, "All we have to do is find an opportunity and wait for him to leave Heaven and Earth Academy." Fang Qingyun was silent. Since the sect master of the academy had once set a gag order, he naturally did not dare to tell outsiders about what happened in the inner sect. When Pang Yi saw Fang Qingyun's silence, he thought that the latter was in a difficult position on account of their relationship as fellow sect mates. "Fellow Taoist Qingyun, if Su Zimo were to leave Heaven and Earth Academy, all you have to do is send us the news. You don't have to do anything." Fang Qingyun shook his head. "Even if he leaves Heaven and Earth Academy, it won't be easy to kill him in the territory of Divine Firmament Mainland. Su Zimo was taken in by the sect master as an in-name disciple. In Divine Firmament Mainland, if Prince Yuanzhua and the others mobilized a large number of experts to kill Su Zimo, there was a high chance that the sect master would sense it. Brother Qingyun, what do you mean by that? Prince Yuanzhua could tell that Fang Qingyun was implying something. Fang Qingyun did not explain. In any case, the reason why I gathered everyone here today is to tell you guys not to act rashly and alert the enemy. It's not impossible to deal with Su Zimo, but we have to wait patiently for an opportunity. Everyone don't worry. If there's a good opportunity, I'll tell you right away. At that time, please use all your strength and do not understand him. We'll kill him then. Xie Tianhong replied, that's good enough. There's no hurry to kill him right away. However, everyone wants a piece of the pie. At that time, let's see who will be the one who can get the kill on him. Prince Yuanzhua narrowed his eyes. If our 4 factions join forces and wait for an opportunity, he'll definitely die. Fiend Domain. After 1,000 years, Tianhuang Sect grew extremely quickly in this corner of the Fiend Domain. Heavenly Wolf had the memories and experience of his previous life and was once the 7 Emotions Fiend King. He was extremely familiar with how to expand his territory, devour and annex places. In this aspect, there was no one more suitable than Heavenly Wolf. In the first few decades, the Martial Dao Prime Body stood in to help Heavenly Wolf deal with some tough opponents. Later on, the Martial Dao Prime Body handed almost everything in Tianhuang Sect to Heavenly Wolf and allowed the latter to manage and develop while he chose to enter seclusion to divine the Martial Dao. After 1,000 years, the territory of Tianhuang Sect was dozens of times larger than before and had already become the strongest black-grade sect in the vicinity. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.